report. Arpa Barua and Linda Latner from WSP are here this evening to provide committee with a presentation on the city's emission reduction targets.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Sorry, I was just not sure if I should share my screen or.
Technical, are they sharing or are you providing?
Hi, Arpa. Feel free to share your screen if you can.
Okay, just give me a moment, please. Okay, can you please send, oh, sorry, this is the wrong slide.
Actually, Arpa, I've got your file here. If you just want to speak, I can change the slides for you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, sorry about that. It's just taking some time to share on Zoom. Are you on the first slide then? Yeah. Okay. Can I start?
Go ahead, Arpa. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Good evening. My name is Arpa Barua, and I'm a climate resilience professional from WSP, and I'm here with my colleague, Linda Lackner, who is an air quality engineer. Today, I'll be walking you through the results of the work that WSP did with the City of Pembroke in establishing GHG reduction targets for the city. Next slide, please. So this project is part of Milestone 2 of the Partners in Climate Protection, or PCP program, which helps municipalities set greenhouse gas or GHG reduction targets. The program supports the federal goal of a 45% reduction by 2030 and a net zero target by 2050, offering free resources, coaching, and networking. Beyond cutting emissions, it helps municipalities save money, improve air quality, create jobs, and enhance public health. Next slide, please. In 2021, Pembroke joined the PCP program, and by 2023, completed Milestone 1 with WSP, using the Global Protocols for Community-Scale Greenhouse Gas Emissions Inventories Basic Framework. A 2019 baseline was set for both corporate and community emissions. The baseline helped the City of Pembroke track energy use, identify emissions resources, develop reduction strategies, and also measure future progress. Next slide, please. The PCP program defines corporate emissions as a result of municipal operations, such as buildings, vehicles, and services that the city manages, and community emissions are identified as emissions that are from residents, businesses, and other activities across the wider community in Pembroke. Next slide, please. So these are the data sources that were used to build the greenhouse gas inventory for the City of Pembroke in Milestone 1. So for the corporate GHG emissions inventory, corporate buildings, corporate vehicle fleet, streetlights, water and sewage and waste was included. And then for the community GHG emissions inventory, residential energy, commercial, institutional energy, industrial energy consumption, transportation, waste, and wastewater treatment was included. Next slide, please. So this is a snapshot of the inventory results that were presented to the City's Council in September 2023. You can see that the total energy consumption for corporate operations was around 73,200 gigajoules. And then using this information, we calculated that the total corporate emissions in 2019 was 1,836 tons. Next slide, please. So similarly, for community emissions, the total energy consumption was 1.24 million gigajoules. And then using this information, we calculated the total community emissions to be 272,776 tons in 2019. Next slide, please. So it is essential for a municipality to set GHG reduction targets since they establish a foundation for achieving the PCP program objectives and offer clear endpoint for municipalities to measure their progress. They drive action, raise awareness of climate risks, lead to cost savings, and showcase leadership, improving the municipality's reputation among stakeholders and the public. While setting the GHG reduction targets for Pembroke, WSP also considered Canada's federal targets, Ontario's provincial targets, and the targets set by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is also known as the IPCC. All these targets aim to achieve net zero by 2050, and these targets guide municipalities in developing their climate action plans, while provincial policies provide incentives for renewable energy, retrofits, and building electric vehicle infrastructure. So these are the GHG reduction targets that WSP recommends that the City of Pembroke adopts. So for corporate emissions, the short-term target that is recommended is 20% below the baseline year emissions of 2019 by 2035. For a medium target, WSP recommends that a reduction in GHG emissions by 40% below the baseline year of 2019 by 2045. The long-term target that WSP recommends is reduction by 80% below the baseline year of 2019 by 2060. Similarly, for the community emissions targets, WB 30% below the baseline year of 2019 by 2035. For a medium target, WSP recommends 50% below the baseline year of 2019 by 2045. And for the long-term target, WSP recommends to reduce GHG emissions by 80% below the baseline year of 2019 by 2055. So these targets were set using the top-down approach, which means even after setting these targets, the city can plan and analyze to achieve them. And then this approach will also allow the city to readjust their goals based on the available resources. So the graph that you see on your screen right now, it shows a proposed picture as how the GHG reductions could play out in the future for corporate emissions when compared to business as usual scenarios. When WSP talks about business as usual scenarios, it's just a projection of 1% and 2% population increase in the future. And these values were also provided in the results for Milestone 1 project in 2023. So you can see that the medium-term corporate GHG reduction target can set up the city to be aligned towards the 2050 federal net zero target. We also took the liberty to show you that the long-term corporate GHG reduction target, net zero target, which is the pink line near 2060, if the city is ambitious and would like to further streamline their GHG reduction activities and achieve carbon neutrality in their corporate activities. So based on the work we did for Milestone 2 for emissions forecast, by 2024, the City of Pembroke's corporate emissions are estimated to be around 1,600 tons of, sorry, if you could go back to the previous slide, please. Yes, thank you. So as I was saying, based on the work we did for Milestone 2 for emissions forecast by 2024, the City of Pembroke's corporate emissions are estimated to be around 1,600 tons of GHGs, which is a reduction compared to the emissions in 2019 of 1,836 tons. These reductions were estimated based on the reduction initiatives implemented by the province of Ontario, such as the Clean Fuel Act. Next slide, please. So similarly, this graph shows how the proposed GHG reductions could play out in the future for community emissions when compared to the business as usual scenarios. And again, you can see that the medium-term community GHG reduction target can set up the city to be aligned towards the 2050 federal net zero target. And again, based on the work that we did for this milestone, by 2024, the City of Pembroke's community emissions are estimated to be around 257 kilotons of GHGs, which is the reduction compared to the emissions in 2019 of 272 kilotons. And again, these reductions were estimated based on the reduction initiatives implemented by the province of Ontario, such as the Clean Fuel Act. Next slide, please. So WSP's recommended GHG reduction targets for Pembroke align with municipalities of similar size. So as you can see on the map, for example, Pembroke's community target is comparable to Cobourg's and also with Midland's overall target, which is 40% by 2030. And these benchmarks are publicly available for all PCP members on the PCP Hub. Next slide, please. The PCP emphasizes prioritizing direct GHG reduction activities as the most effective way to combat climate change, supported by carbon offsets and sequestration for absolute reductions. Targets should be in whole numbers, and strategies like energy audits and community consultations can drive significant savings. Next slide, please. So in addition to the reduction targets recommended by WSP, here are some recommended actions in key areas that the City of Pembroke can implement to achieve its GHG reduction targets. In the transportation sector, the city can promote public and active transit to cut on gasoline and diesel use. For community monitoring and energy efficiency, the city can use energy management in buildings to reduce demand and optimize maintenance. To reduce reliance on natural gas and fuel oil combustion, WSP recommends to incorporate renewable energy in new projects and utilize carbon offsets and heat recovery systems. By developing and implementing a local climate action plan, the city can address direct and indirect emissions through prioritization, incentives, and sector-specific strategies. Engaging stakeholders for collective reduction efforts can help the community be more involved in revising the targets and also help develop the local climate action plan. And finally, focusing on carbon removal and offsets and expanding programs like tree planting to sequester carbon. So all of these reduction strategies can enable the city to align with their milestone to reduction goals, but also please note that these are not concrete strategies. Definitely the city can revise and analyze the more feasible options, and that's more work that needs to be done towards milestone 3. Next slide, please. And thank you very much for listening and for giving WSP the opportunity to present today.
Questions? Councillor Keel?
2 questions, one for staff and one for our guest. I'll start with our guest. Is there a reason why our targets miss the 2050 zero emissions and why our targets are also worse than the 2 comparables? Is there something about our city that's making it more difficult, or what's the reason for us being behind?
There's no specific reason other than that I think Pembroke was on board in the program a little bit later than the other cities. Those targets were sort of set more in the 2015 and 14 year range, whereas Pembroke joined the PCP program in 2021. And the targets we set might, in that perspective, might look a little bit harsh, but again, that's where we encourage the city to communicate with their staff and then also with the community to better understand whether and how these targets can be achieved.
And then to the staff, are we already implementing? I know like the next stage is our plan, and then the stage after that is implementation. But are we fast tracking some implementation that we can and know about?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I know that when the city does their buildings and we're looking at LED conversions, so we are certainly doing things ahead of the milestone 4 and milestone 3. We certainly look at stuff like that whenever we are doing our buildings and upgrades to our plants or facilities.
So it's already top of mind.
Yeah.
Any other question? Councillor Purcell?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Just a couple questions. When it comes to corporate buildings, I see it's 50% in terms of our emissions in 2019. Is there an opportunity to break that down into specific buildings? So what I'm getting at is you know, if we go in terms of a P3 and we're no longer operating the PMC, for example, what would that reduce our emissions? Because I'm sure that's probably one of the bigger portions in terms of the corporate building component of CO2 emissions, and it gives us an opportunity to even get closer to carbon neutral. So that's just, I just didn't see that in the recommendations, and maybe that's just something that maybe should be captured in the recommendations. And then there was another question I had in regards to the comparable municipalities. And I just gotta find that. So the town of Midland.
Yeah.
So it says they're reduced their community emissions by 6% by 2028. Meanwhile, our goal is to reduce 20% by 2030. That's significant, 2 years, but if we double it, it's still only 12% compared to our 20%. So how are these are just goals that we're trying to establish, or are these set targets in regards to the municipalities? Because you say it's comparable, but they're not comparable.
Yeah, so for the town of Midland, so just to give you a bit more context, the PCP program allows municipalities to set targets that the municipality can actually work towards. Certain municipalities can set a combined goal, and certain municipalities can set separate goals. So that, and my apologies that the text conveys a different message, but while I was speaking, I did mention that the town of Midland has an overall reduction target of 40%. So when I say overall, it's a combination of community and corporate. Whereas for Pembroke, we decided to break it down as corporate targets and then as community targets. So,
So they're requiring their residents to,
of actions to achieve targets. I know the city of Pembroke a number of years ago implemented a community tree planting incentive program that 0 people took it up. However, the city of Pembroke, through its strategic partner, the Horticulture Society, the deputy mayor and myself, we were told the other night that they planted more than 100 trees for their 130. And so certainly being our I'm going to count that as a win for the city of Pembroke because they're our strategic partner. The only other comment that I would have is that I would hope that that the city looks at things with an eye of reasonableness. So while I appreciate setting targets and trying to work towards those targets, I would hope that there's a reasonableness in terms of trying to achieve that without what I'll call undue hardship out of an employment context, but just that there needs to be some reasonableness to certain actions. So while things are unfolding, constructing new buildings or so forth, having an idea, sort of like when we built the fire department building, as I recall, it would have been LEED certified, but it was constructed in a certain fashion to try and achieve certain targets.
Whether to go ahead with a 3-year pilot. We've also applied for up to a $500,000 grant from the Green Municipal Fund for 2 electric minibuses. So that's encouraging. So I sit on the Beautification and Climate Advisory Committee with Councillor Giacono. So we really appreciate the report, and we'll take it to our January meeting, and we'll review the report further and provide staff with more input. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Councillor Giacono?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I reviewed, some of the information that Anne McKay sent us, and I'm not a scientist, and I find, some of the comparisons rather a little difficult to comprehend because I'm not a statistician to begin with. But I think Pembroke is ahead of the curve. I just recently saw a documentary by Agriculture Canada producing a feed that'll make cows less flatulent. So hopefully that's a step in the right direction. And, everything has to begin with a single step. How many people here drive through a drive-through to pick up their coffee or go to McDonald's and pick up their burger, and your vehicles are running all during that time, not shut off? If that was done right across the country and across the world, what kind of an impact would that be on, the carbon footprint? So I think we're ahead of the curve. We're moving forward, but I find the numbers are a little difficult to understand. Hopefully it'll come to be a little clearer in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Frenier?
Thank you.
I guess my question is, when we are looking at this and trying to look at ways to reduce this footprint, Are we working with other partners that are affecting it? Example, the school board or the transportation, other transportation like school buses? Because we need to all be on the same page about trying to reduce it. I know right now the school buses have certain stops. And I know at my particular granddaughter, the bus stop where we have to bring her to, we sit there for 5 or maybe 10 minutes with our car running, and I see 3 or 4 other vehicles doing the same thing, waiting for the bus to get there, you know, and then the same thing at night. So if that bus doesn't want to travel that extra street, look at what the gas that's burning and the emissions it's causing. So we need to work together on this. And yes, maybe it's going to be a little more inconvenient for them to run that bus to different routes, but it's saving many vehicles from sitting and idling on the side of the road in the wintertime waiting for the bus. So that's just, I'm wondering if any of those conversations are taking place.
ARPA, through you, Mr. ARPA, on the milestone 3, when we develop a local action plan, does that incorporate dealing with the local agencies?
Yes, so the community engagement section is where you typically engage with different stakeholders and come up with action items that you could implement in milestone 4.
Okay, any further questions to our presenters? Seeing none, then we thank you very much for the presentation. And Ms. McLaughlin, thank you very much. We'll look forward to the next milestone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
First up, new business, bulk water septage receiving depot tender number 23-1067A. Mr. Lewis, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The recommendation included in the report is that the Operation Committee approve the award of the bulk water and septage receiving station tender number 23-1067A to 902474 Ontario Limited, operating as Do-All Construction Limited, for $1,291,396 plus HST, that being the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. And that additional expenditures of $50,000 for a contingency allowance be approved, bringing the total project cost to $1,341,396 plus HST. Furthermore, that the budget shortfall of $443,170.62 be funded through the 2025 capital budget. The financial comments on the report: the 2024 capital budget had a combined budget of $1,312,010. The project costs as tendered, including the design, site preparation, the completed pre-purchase of the septage receiving station, contract administration, construction, additional expenditures, and the net HST. Total $1,755,180.62. Shortfall in the budget after carryover will be included in the appropriate capital financing funds in the 2025 budget year. And I have confirmed with the Treasurer that that will be through reserves, as this asset is attached to significant revenue streams. So as usual, the tender process was used per the procurement policy. 4 bids were received. They are as follows: Do-All Construction Limited, $1,291,396. McCrae Excavating, $1,350,000, $350,766. JWK Contracting Inc., $1,352,604.03. And BEI Excavating Inc. at $1,545,827.70. The establishment of the John Beavis Bulk Water and Septage Receiving Station provides for bulk water sales for local contractors. Local contractors generally use it for construction activities and dust suppression. As well, bulk water haulers transport water for various uses: swimming pool filling, milk production facilities, etc. And additional local businesses use bulk water for their mobile cleaning operations and weed control services. Septage Receiving Station allows for the proper disposal of septage from septic pumping and from sewer cleaning service providers, as well as the disposal of temporary washroom facilities. In the 2025 operations and maintenance budget, 204,000 in revenue is included for bulk water sales and septage receiving. It's anticipated that revenues will increase annually, especially in the first few years, as the location is more accessible to large hauling services. Presently at our existing location, the larger trucks have some difficulty, so we don't see all the large trucks that we could be seeing. As well, the city is reviewing reinstatement of accepting portable toilet waste as part of the septage receiving. We have suspended receiving portable toilet waste in large quantities. We had, especially due to the digester project that we had on for the last 3 years, just to make sure that the plant could handle things better. The clearing of the lands for the new depot has been completed. The driveway access has been established. The purchase of the new bulk water station is completed. It's sitting in inventory. We have ordered the septage receiving station. It's due to us soon. The rest of the works that is subject of this tender is for the installation of the equipment and the site works and the underground infrastructure that's required. So we did consider some alternatives that have been included in the report. Number one, of course, is the recommendation that we award as tendered and fund the budget shortfall in 2025. Just for information, there is approximately 1.1 million worth of project costs that will be completed in 2025. One of the other alternatives is to look at doing holding off the paving works. A good majority of the paving works and doing those in 2026. We would do some minor paving when the septage receiving station was installed, just as a catchment in case there was a spill. It would reduce the budget by $125,000 if we held off on doing that paving, keeping in mind that paving doesn't get less expensive as time goes on, it gets more expensive. So right now that would be worth $125,000. In 26 it might be a different number. The other option that can be considered would be to cancel the tender and re-tender in 2025. With that in mind, the tender was, we did tender this late in the construction season, knowing that the contractors are less busy. Majority of the project works that contractors have been doing this year are completed or are being completed now. So we would have contractor availability late this fall yet to do some of the works and immediately early into next year. Hence why we were successful in getting the 4 bids that we did receive. Additionally, if we hold off and re-tender, materials are only going to get more expensive. By tendering now and starting the works this fall, we secured 2024 pricing for the materials. The strategic plan impact is to develop additional revenue streams, which, as mentioned, is significant in this particular project, and to ensure overall infrastructure is in good condition. One of the points I want to make there is presently we are receiving septage at the McGee lift station. The McGee lift station was not it was not built to receive septage. That wasn't the intent of the lift station. It's a temporary measure until this can be done. And we're starting to see the ill effects of receiving septage in a station that wasn't built for that purpose. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councillor Brazil first.
Thank you for your report. I'm just really concerned in terms of the additional dollars, in terms of $500,000 that's unfunded. I guess, well, it's funded, but it's funded through 2025 budget, through capital, you said. Is that through water and sewer?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it's through the water and sewer, and it's through the reserves that have been built up in the sewer. The water portion is already there. The shortfall is mainly in the sewer side of things, and it is coming out of reserves, specifically out of the water and sewer taxes, not general revenue taxes, so not property taxes.
I understand, but I think my concern is that, you know, you have to replenish those reserves in terms of the water sewer as well, right? So, I don't know, you know, combined water and sewer is $1,450, I believe it is, per household, which is significant. And I'm just wondering what the impact would be in terms of those rates to replenish that $500,000?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the rates calculated for the 2025 budget are similar to what we've been doing in the last few years, so there's not a significant increase based on this. And the revenue contribution in 2025 is $122,400 to go back into the reserves. With this recommendation being approved, the new balance at the end of 25 would be 960,000 plus the 122. So we'd be roughly, what's that, $1,080,000 in the sewer reserves at the end of 25.
So if we were to proceed with a new water tower, where would those dollars come from?
Through you, Mr. Chair, new water tower is not scheduled or not planned in the next few years, but we are building the reserves now. That's the water side of things, that's the water taxes. That is a separate reserve account specifically for the water tower, separate from the reserves that I'm referring to here.
So what I'm getting at is, you know, is there an opportunity maybe just to park this project for a short period of time? I mean, it seems like it's a lot of dollars, but when you already have the equipment, you already have the, you know, you already have the bulk water systems purchased already. It's just the prep in terms of the area to do the prep work. That's what I understood in terms of the tender. That's included in terms of the purchase of the bulk water dispenser and the septage receiving unit, I guess it is. So I'm just kind of concerned in terms of, you know, $200,000 for a year in terms of, you know, the profits that'll be made of that. You still got to operate it. So you have operator expenses. You still have to plow the parking lot. You still got to have access. You're going to have other issues associated with that decrease that $200,000 quite rapidly in regards to the profits. So I understand. I'm just wondering in terms of, you know, are we looking long range in terms of the water and sewer to ensure that we're going to be able to fund, you know, bigger projects such as the water tower and not, you know, have an opportunity for, like, really, it doesn't really impact a lot of the Pembroke residents not having septage or bulk water. Maybe some of the contractors or those kinds of things, but really not a resident of Pembroke. But the $1,475 in terms of your combined water and sewer bill, and that goes up to $1,500, really does impact our residents. So, and the $6 cents a cubic meter of water, is that enough to cover the costs? Because I did some calculations, and it turns out that's probably about the same price as what the average citizen is paying.
Mr. Lewis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to answer some of the questions, the $204,000 in revenue, and that's anticipated revenue now. We do anticipate that revenue will increase as we move forward. There's a lot of haulers right now that are driving to Ottawa with septage in the large trucks because there's just not an opportunity for us to take them in the existing. So we do anticipate it's going to be significantly higher than what we've got right now. Once we reintroduce portable toilets back into it, into the system, we anticipate that revenues will be significantly higher than we anticipate in the next couple of years once we bring those back in. We get continuous calls from the haulers of portable waste that are hauling to Ottawa. There's no place else in the valley, in this general area, for septage. With the $204,000 in revenue, there's an 8.5-year return on investment. The underground infrastructure involved in the station has a lifespan of 50 to 100 years, and the equipment a minimum of 20 to 30 years, with a return on investment of 8.5. As far as the water tower is concerned, the pollution control center, the water treatment plant, all separate reserves. So we're not tapping into those big project items. We have building condition assessments on both of our plants. Infrastructure needs studies that are being completed right now, 20-year facility plans that are completed right now, and I've already mentioned the water tower. All done through separate reserves, separate from the wastewater collection system, which is the reserves we're tapping here. And as I mentioned, we would still have a reserve fund of just over $1 million at the end of 25.
Thank you very much. Would there also be an impact in terms of, you know, the additional traffic on Paul Martin? I mean, that's some heavy equipment, right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if we increase in hauling, or see an increase in hauling, yes, we're gonna see a little bit more. But when I say an increase in hauling, I'm talking 2 or 3 tractor trailers a day. We're not talking significant. For bulk water, they're driving that route now and arriving at the operations yard on River Road. Majority of them are also traveling through there to get to the McGee lift station if they're hauling septage. So it's not going to increase significantly. You're welcome.
The mayor and then Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a motion, if I get a second or comment, I would move that we proceed with the recommendation that we have in the report.
Second by Deputy Mayor.
In terms of comments, and I don't want to repeat everything that Mr. Lewis has said, certainly we meet with Mr. Lewis prior to operations meetings to go over a variety of different things. I don't know whether Mr. Lewis could, and I'm not going to repeat the monies and everything else, but one item perhaps if Mr. Lewis, and I don't know whether you can crystal ball this or not, but when you're talking about the McGee lift station, which we constructed at least during my time on council, when you're saying that the method in which you're receiving septage at that particular location, that it's, I'll say, harsh on that particular lift station, do you have any approximation as to what that will end up costing the city of Pembroke if we continue to do that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, my discussions with the supervisor of wastewater collection who looks after the lift station, we anticipate $500,000 in required replacements of equipment within 3 to 5 years.
Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The provincial mandate for the hauling, et cetera, people are obviously hauling the septage to Ottawa, meaning that there must be a need or demand locally to have it processed. Seeing that they can't do that, they're going to another center to have it processed. I remember at one time that there was a dry cake that the farming community could use to put on their fields as fertilizer. Is that still done? And is there? My main question was the provincial mandate. Is that affecting us primarily in any way to proceed locally here to handle that septage?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the legislation and the rules and regulations related to land spreading have changed significantly over the last few years, and they continue to change. Basically, there's no land spreading anymore, or very little land spreading. And if there is, it's confined to a very, very short period of time in small little locations that it can happen. So, as we're all aware, regulations of anything related to a spill near an open water course, farming communities are generally well water, so you're dropping septage close to somebody's well. So the regulations have changed, and everything is being shipped to septage receiving stations now. Additionally, I'd mentioned in the report, as far as water is concerned and bulk water is concerned, the regulations are changing there. The most recent one that I mentioned was milk production facilities. Used to be able to use the well water off the farm to clean the equipment at a milk production facility. That is no longer allowed. It must be chlorinated water coming from a municipality. Hence why we foresee an increase in bulk water sales as well, and why this will be our second bulk water system.
Councillor Keel.
Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
So what did we originally budget for this project that we're $443,000 over?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the original budget was, I had it in there, $1,312,000 total cost, and the expenses, total cost of all the expenses once everything is included in there, including the net HST, sorry, is $1,755,000.
So I mean, once again, that's a double-digit significant overage in terms of our estimates. I'm going to take this 2 lines. Number 1, is it possible for us to get a report on the overages for this year on our capital projects?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would ask the Deputy Treasurer to put a report together for that. I can do that, yes.
Okay. In terms of this particular project, I've been saying since I got here, we need to find new ways of revenue that isn't on the backs of the taxpayers, and frankly, from my perspective, this is a really good one. I'm not quite sure about the 8.5-year return on investment, because I think Councillor Purcell is correct. There's going to be operational costs and whatnot every year, but they're not going to eat up that 200,000. And if we start pushing towards $250,000 or whatnot, I mean, I think this is extraordinarily good revenue. And as I said, it's specifically not on the backs of our taxpayers. So I'll have no problem supporting this tonight. I think the faster we get this and the faster we start getting revenues in, frankly, the better for the city of Pembroke. But I do remain concerned and vigilant about how much our larger projects are going over. But when you take that off the table, Mr. Lewis, I think this is a job well done. It's getting done quickly, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Frenny?
2 questions. Just refresh my memory. This is also going to be down close to where our water treatment facility is now, correct? Or a septage receiving? Where's the location of this facility?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's just off of Paul Martin Drive in the
Oh, so,
McCool
okay.
Industrial Park.
So that brings me to the question of, are we going to be treating this septage? Like, they're going to be bringing it to us, and that's going to go where? Where's that going to be treated?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it enters into our wastewater collection system at a slow release. It will go down to the town line lift
Okay.
station. It gets mixed in with our regular wastewater at the town line lift station, then it gets pumped to the treatment center.
Okay, so it enters our system then? Okay.
Correct.
What are the residual expenses to receiving it? Are those going to be in with the price? Because, and what kind of burden is this going to put on our present system? Is it, we can handle it? You know, that's all I'm looking at. I know it's great to say we're going to make this much money, but how much stress is it putting on our system if that starts to increase dramatically? That would be one question. And then I guess my other question is, do we hire extra staff to man this depot? So those are my 2 questions. I'm looking at other costs, and if we've got a lot more septage coming into our treatment, that's going to be harder on our brushes, harder on all those little mechanical things that we often see come across our budget requests. So are we charging enough? So is that all taken into account on the rate?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize to Councillor Purcell, I didn't get to that question. We anticipate roughly about $10,000 in expenses to operate this facility for at least the first 5, maybe 10 years. There's going to be snow plowing, yes. There's going to be, some minor works, but the equipment is going to last decades, and they're prepackaged. It's prepackaged equipment. It comes as a big giant unit. We basically put it in place, connect it to the infrastructure, and we're done. It's a fob system, so an operator will come to the operations department. They will sign up, they will get a fob, they pay us for those. And so we don't have staff at the station. It's an unmanned station. So there's no new staff that's required. Just to make sure everybody is clear, we're doing this now. We're already taking septage. We're already selling bulk water. This is providing us with an upgraded system so that we can increase the revenues that we're generating now and make it a little easier. We don't anticipate any more than maybe 20% more in septage. That's not 20% more of wastewater that we see at the plant. That's just 20% more of septage that we're going to see. So we were doing it before, we were taking the portable waste before. This isn't necessarily changing anything, so other than the $10,000 to look after this new site, we don't anticipate significant increases in operations and maintenance.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Without belaboring this too far, but can you briefly just remind us as to the need for extraneous septage into our system to make our system work?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Your Worship, that was on my list. I apologize, Councillor Lafreniere. Yes, we do need the septage. Our system is very, what I'll call light. We've talked about inflow and infiltration before. We've got a whole bunch of clear water that's coming into our system right now. Our system is fairly clean. So our digesters work by having the bacteria to help break down the material that's coming in. If we don't have that bacteria, our treatment system and the treatment train suffers. So by bringing in septage, it actually provides us with the food that the digesters need to work correctly. So it is beneficial for us to have this material.
Deputy Mayor?
Just a quick question before we vote on it. Pricing. Your pricing reviewed annually, or do you have a 2-year agreement with the customer, or how do you include inflation, or how do you work that out?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I would like to thank all of council for helping me remember the questions that are being asked. Yes, we do review it annually. We review both bulk water, septage receiving, and a number of other items when we put our user fees together annually, and we increase based on the needs to increase for the expenses.
Thank you.
Councillor Purcell?
It just brought up another question. So I know that we had issues in regards to receiving septage that was at the Pollution Control Center, right? That was impacting the digesters. Last year or the year before, I believe that's when you stopped, right? So having it further away would allow the septage to percolate and mix with the other waters so that it can be cleaned out. Is there a process in place in terms of sampling before people dump, or did they just dump and then if we end up with a problem down the road in terms of, you know, the system, is there a way to trace that back? Like, I'm just wondering if there's a sample that's taken from vehicle and then, you know, if there's no issues, the sample is discarded. I just don't know what the process is.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, we do not take samples. We get manifests. From each and every hauler, we get a manifest of what material is being delivered to us. The part of the problem with the existing system and the location that we have right now is it goes into a smaller manhole, let's call it. And as soon as it gets into the manhole, it hits the float, the pumps turn on and pumps it into the force main, and it starts moving, making its way down to the plant. This new location is going to allow us an opportunity. We're going to have a large tank. It's going to be dumped into the large tank. It's going to be slowly fed into the system, which gives it an opportunity to mix with the other sewage that's there and the wastewater that's there. It also gives us an opportunity that when things start to go awry, we can go back. We have the manifest, and we've got a slow release that we have an opportunity there. A couple of years ago, and just to add to that question, a couple of years ago when we stopped a lot of the hauling, that wasn't septage receiving. It was more portable waste, porta potties. And if we go back to COVID days, where there was porta potties showing up on large sites all over the place, and they were being dumped weekly or bi-weekly, or every 2 weeks, regardless if they were used or not used. And a significant amount of chemicals that are used in porta potties was coming down to the plant. And that's why we stopped it. Then we had the digester project happening, so we're hoping to get back into receiving those porta potties because the revenue is significant. You're welcome.
Now that we're all a little more educated this evening, any final questions or comments? Then there is a motion and a second, then call to question. Those in favor, approve unanimously. Thank you very much. Next up, our final item tonight, the 2023 DW QMS Management Review Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The recommendation is that the City of Pembroke Operations Committee accept the DWQMS Management Review Report for 2023, and furthermore, that the Mayor and the Chair of Operations sign and approve as indicated. There are no financial impacts to this report, and the costs associated are included in the annual operating and maintenance budgets. Requirement of the Ontario Drinking Water Management Standard, the DWQMS operational plan, is for the quality management system representative to ensure annual management review results are conveyed to top management and the owner being council. And this particular report fulfills that requirement. The DWQMS has been designed for continual improvement, which is the foundation of the DWQMS policy endorsed by top management. The current reviews considers the entire 2023 calendar year, and where appropriate, touches on activities continuing into 2024. The detailed results have been reviewed by top management in accordance with the DWQMS Management Review System procedure. Some highlights. During the 2023 year, the city's drinking water system scored 100% compliance rating across the board after a detailed Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks inspection. The water quality testing program meet or exceeds regulations. Maintenance procedures are appropriate, continually improved and updated. Shortcomings are being addressed through the preventative and corrective action request process. The operator certification program is working, and staff are following procedures and showing a commitment to continual improvement. So in short, the 2023 management review shows the DWQMS is functioning successfully and reinforces the fact that the City of Pembroke produces and supplies high-quality, safe drinking water. And the DWQMS Management Review Report was attached to the package. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I have Councillor Giacono.
Mr. Chair, I would move we accept the recommendation as presented, and I would like to speak to it if there's a seconder.
Deputy Mayor, second. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, the DWM report initially came out of the Walkerton issue, where a number of people contracted E. coli. I think there was 2,300 people at the time. Based on, poor water control, et cetera. The fact that Pembroke has probably one of the highest ratings of water, I would say, in the province of Ontario, is a feather in the cap of the staff and the operations committee. I'd like to congratulate you on that. And as Justice O'Connor in a statement wanted to ensure that, the future
I'd like to call this council meeting to order for November 19th. I would ask that everyone please take a moment and stand for an opening prayer or reflection. Before opening this meeting of council, I would ask those who wish, each in your own way, silently join in a prayer of guidance over these proceedings. Thank you. If everyone could please be seated. Something a little out of the ordinary this evening. I'd call upon Councillor Jacquino to introduce a guest that's with us this evening.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. I would like to introduce our guest and ask you to come forward. Maybe Heather, is this good here, Your Worship? You can have a seat, and maybe you're going to say a few words. I know you've been waiting a long time. I kind of told you may be here at first on, but that's politics. Thank you for your patience. I've known Heather and Mike Czar for, I would say, 50 years. We've been close friends. Heather was a very dedicated nurse. She presently, I believe, sits on the health board in Pembroke, still contributing back to the community. Although she's not a resident of Pembroke, she lives in the Eganville area. She and her husband, it's a fourth-generation farm, still runs a very successful farming operation. They've gone from hand milking to robotics, and it's a wonderful thing that they're still contributing to the community. So I'm very pleased to have her not only as a friend, but she's here in another capacity. She works at the Eganville Clothing Bank, I believe it is, and they have a mandate to give money back to communities. Even though they're not in our area, I think Heather might like to say a few words. So Heather, welcome, and I share those comments on behalf of the Mayor and Council. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. I would have been happy just to pass over the check, but I understand that I think it's important for outlying communities to realize the importance of the pool, and this money is for the pool. So I believe that the other surrounding townships need to assist this important goal of creating a pool because everybody will use it. Eganville residents, Aliman Island residents, Golden Lake, all of us will definitely benefit from it. So I think it's important to give back. So I have a $2,000 check for the pool fund. I just wanted to let you a little bit update about the clothing bank. In recent years, we've really upped our profile in the community, and we've have some wonderful volunteers. We're all volunteers who work there, and they do great work for sure. Just an overview: we've given over $10,000 back to the community. Some of the places we give to are the Eganville Food Bank, the Sharing Place Food Bank in Golden Lake. We give to both schools for breakfast clubs. The Eganville Senior Needs, we've given $1,000 for Christmas meals. We have given quite a bit of money to both the North Algona, Wilberforce, and the Bonnechere Valley Fire Departments. And we also have open doors for anybody who's had a fire or is in need for them to come and get free items at our place. So I'm very happy to give this to you, and I guess my message and why I actually came was to let the whole of this area of the county know that this facility is important to all of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Czar, for that presentation and for the
yes.
generosity of
And-
providing that to us. Thank you.
Your Worship.
Following on that very generous donation, moving through the agenda, disclosure of pecuniary interest in relation to this open meeting of council, seeing none. Series of minutes this evening. First up is a regular meeting of council November 5th, 2024. I have a motion by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Plummer. Those in favor? That is carried. We have a special meeting of council November 5th, 2024. I have moved by Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Purcell. Those in favor? And that is carried. Next is we have adoption of minutes. One this evening, Operations Committee, September 17th, 2024. Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Those in favor? That is carried. Last but not least is receiving minutes from local boards. Pembroke Heritage Murals enclosed in your package, November 6, 2024. Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Purcell. Those in favor, and that is carried. Moving to committee reports. Councillor Plummer, I understand you have the Operations Committee Award item.
I do. Moved by myself, second by the Deputy Mayor, that tender contract number 23-1067A for the bulk water septage receiving station to be located at 279 Paul Martin Drive be awarded to Do All Construction Limited for a contract value of $1,291,396 plus HST. And the additional expenditures in the amount of $50,000 be approved for a contingency allowance. And that excuse me, that the budget shortfall of $443,170.62 be funded for the 2025 capital budget, and the total value of the recommendation equal $1,341,396.08 plus applicable HST.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Plummer and seconded by the Deputy Mayor that tender contract 23-1067A for a bulk water and septage receiving station to be located at 279 Paul Martin Drive be awarded to Do All Construction Limited. Total contract value $1,291,396 plus HST, and additional expenditures in the amount of $50,000 be approved as contingency, that the budget shortfall of $443,170.62 be funded in the 2025 capital budget, and total value of the recommendation equaling $1,341,396.08 plus applicable HST. Councillor Plummer, did you wish to speak to this report?
I believe this was discussed in length this evening at the committee level, so I think we'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. Next, moving into bylaws versus 2024-61. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Plummer, that bylaw 2024-61 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2024-24 as amended, being a bylaw to regulate and control the parking of vehicles in the city of Pembroke be adopted and passed, and further that said bylaw be signed by yourself, Your Worship, and the clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation, and awaiting your signature. This item came before us at the Planning, Building, and Bylaw Enforcement Department meeting. Based on the visibility, concerns were noted by a property owner, 272 Pembroke Street East, and the snow removal concerns from the Operations Department staff. There was a recommendation that the removal of a one parking space and extending the no parking zone to the south side of the existing first driveway off of William Street be initiated. So this bylaw will address that and allow the operations folks a larger turning radius. When there's a lot of snow, it's very difficult to make that particular turn by vehicles being parked there. So that should alleviate the problem. And citizens should be aware if they're parked in a zone that says no parking and it's winter hours, their vehicle can be towed away. Thank you.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next is Resolution 2024-27. No, sorry, I'm too far ahead of myself. 2024-62, Deputy Mayor, Lake Street and College Way parking.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer, that bylaw 2024-62, a bylaw to authorize the entering into of an agreement between 320 Lake Street Incorporated and the Corporation of the City of Pembroke.
Corporation, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a one-year agreement for the 2024-25 year for the parking lot beside 320 Lake Street. And there's a new owner in the building, so that's why we came up with a new lease. And staff is recommending that in case something develops for the Algonquin Trail, once it's completed, the city will be in a better position to consider a longer-term lease on the balance of the property. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next is 2024-63 vacant land registry bylaw. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Plummer that bylaw 2024-63 being a bylaw to regulate vacant buildings within the city of Pembroke be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation waiting your signature.
Moved by Councillor Giacono, seconded by Councillor Plummer, that bylaw 2024-63, a bylaw to regulate vacant buildings within the city of Pembroke be adopted and passed, and further said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Your Worship. This concern came to the planning committee, and what it'll do basically is address the fact that vacant buildings can be an issue from having people there as illegal migrants taking up residence in a building that nobody knows about, and also the fact that a fire could take place there and endanger the other citizens that live around them. So this bylaw, in essence, looks after these particular issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? Okay, carried. Next one, 2024-64, 9 Bennett Street rezoning. Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Fernier that bylaw 2024-64, bylaw to amend bylaw 2020-05 of the Corporation of the City of Pembroke, being a bylaw to regulate the use of lands and the character, location, and use of buildings and structures of the City of Pembroke be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Purcell and seconded by Councillor Lafreniere.
To go from a residential 4-29, R4-29 zone to a residential type 4-15 or an R4-15 zone. So what it boils down to is that there's an additional 12 units to an already existing 38 unit building, which will have a total of now 50. Thank you.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Next is motions, Resolution 2024-026, DWQMS. Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, second by Deputy Mayor. Be it resolved that the Corporation City of Pembroke accepts the City of Pembroke 2023 DWQMS Management Review Report.
Moved by Councillor Plummer and seconded by our Deputy Mayor. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke accepts the City of Pembroke 2023 DWQMS Management Review Report. Councillor Plummer.
This was discussed earlier in committee, but pertinent to note, we scored a 100% on our testing for the clean water drinking.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? Against? That's carried. Next one, Resolution 2024-27, Declaration of Illegal and Toxic Drug Use Crisis. Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Whereas unsafe and welcoming, and whereas residents of and private properties within the City of Pembroke have had to endure ongoing harassment and nuisances caused by illegal and toxic drug users, drug trafficking and drug houses, including exposure to toxic drugs and drug paraphernalia, and whereas increased law enforcement efforts are needed to focus on those individuals and criminal organizations that illegally traffic and sell controlled substances and profit off of their drug-using victims, and whereas all levels of government share in the responsibility to combat illegal and toxic drug use, including the federal government's jurisdiction over criminal law and controlled substances, the provincial government's jurisdiction over healthcare and property regulation, and the municipal government's role in bylaw enforcement and the provision of local services, including policing and social services. And whereas subsection 10.2 of the Municipal Act 2001 provides broad jurisdiction to single-tier municipalities in matters relating to 1, the economic, social, and environmental well-being of the municipality, 2, the health, safety, and well-being of persons, and 3, the protection of persons and property. And whereas one of the highest priorities of any municipality must be the safety and security of its residents, now therefore it is moved that the City of Pembroke, its elected officials and staff carry out the following actions on behalf of the municipality. that the City of Pembroke declare illegal and toxic drug use to be a current crisis within the City of Pembroke, that the City of Pembroke write to the local administrative judges of the Ontario Court of Justice and the Superior Court of Justice in the County and the Regional Senior Justice of the Peace for the East Region to advise that illegal and toxic drug use has been declared a current crisis within the City of Pembroke, and that a copy of this motion be posted on the City of Pembroke's website.
The indulgence of council waiving rereading. I see nodding. Okay. Councillor Keel?
Thank you, Your Worship. So we here on council know that we've certainly been experiencing a significant drug crisis, certainly this year and certainly into last year, and to a degree even before then. COVID was a very hard time on a lot of individuals, and it has created, not just in our region, of course today we're talking about the City of Pembroke, but in many regions we have a problem on our hands. So the wording for this motion, I use the word crisis as opposed to emergency. Certainly when a municipality declares emergency, as Your Worship would know, that has certain legal aspects to it. This is a recognition that this council understands, has noticed, and appreciates what our residents are going through and the concerns that they have been, I know, bringing to many of us, if not all of us. This would not be the first time that this council has declared a general matter of urgency. The prior council in April 2021 declared a climate emergency in a 5-to-1 vote of the prior council. In terms of statistics, this year both the OPP and the Renfrew County Health Unit have had to issue notices regarding overdose alerts and tainted drug supplies. Indeed, in the last 2 years, the health unit has issued no fewer 23 opioid-related deaths in Renfrew County, up from 10 the year before, according to health unit data. Obviously, we're not through 2024 yet, but that just shows you, again, in the last 2 years, we went from 10 to 23 last year. And what a shame it is to lose anybody to a drug overdose. Our own OPP reports advise that overdose statistics continue to rise year over year. They record 24 in 2022, 2 of which were fatal, up to 27 overdoses in 2023, 3 of which were fatal. And this year, through the first 3 quarters of the year, 30 overdoses, 5 of which were fatal. So we are currently on an upward trend that I know all of us around this table would love to see end and end quickly. In terms of criminal charges laid involving drugs, 2024 continues a 2-year upward trend. In the third quarter report, both possession and I'm going to say more importantly trafficking, and I'll speak about that. Charges are up 20% over last year, and there's still a further quarter to report on. Just yesterday, the province announced that it will bring forth new legislation, the Community Safety and Crime Prevention Month Act, to proclaim November as Community Safety and Crime Prevention Month. This current crisis, Your Worship, is probably affecting us in many ways that we've never felt before. It doesn't just hit on health matters. It's also hitting on security matters. It's hitting on safety issues. You know, there's people coming up to me telling me that they don't feel safe in the City of Pembroke anymore. And they all say the same thing. I never used to lock my door in the City of Pembroke. I recommend people lock their doors. But that shows you that they're thinking back to how they were living and how they don't feel safe and secure right now. The provincial government, the federal government, everybody is looking for ways to do this. But one of the groups that hasn't quite yet weighed in on drug enforcement issues is us around this table. We've talked a lot about the health issues. We've talked about mental health issues. But there are certain aspects that we as a municipal council can take. And some of those resolutions will follow. This is not to say, and I want to be very clear about this, this is not to say that I have any intention of going after drug users. Drug users are victims. Very, very few drug users wake up one morning and just decide, I'm going to go find some illegal drugs. Locally, we know from newspaper reports that we've had some sizable trafficking busts from the OPP. Drug traffickers are the scum of the earth. They are preying off some of our most vulnerable individuals. And they don't want us to succeed in this. They are making money, and they, as your worship as a lawyer, who I know used to be involved in federal crimes, they make a lot of money off of the drug trade. The traffickers are living high on the hog, quite frankly. While our local community members, our brothers, our sisters, our nephews, our neighbors, they're the ones that are struggling with the drug addiction and trying to live their lives, while the drug traffickers are the ones just trying to keep the train running. And that is why I know the deputy mayor is involved with the Community Watch program, and you know, we've talked a lot about the proliferation of drug houses in the city of Pembroke. It's not that they never existed before, but we certainly didn't know so many of them before. So, your worship, to wrap up my comments on why I think it would be apt for this council to declare a crisis, we know provincially and nationally that we are all struggling with drug trafficking and drug crimes. We know that a lot of attention and a lot of money is needing to be focused on this. Just as we speak right now, we know that the county, in collaboration with us, is trying to talk the province into putting a heart hub here in the city of Pembroke. Because those people that are at their lowest, they need resources. And so this should say to the province, you know, we recognize that we have a problem. We need resources. We need funding. We need wraparound support for users. We need increased policing and enforcement measures to stop the traffickers and the sellers. So, your worship, I do think this has risen to a point where we should be addressing it, and we should be showing our residents that we've heard them, that we know what's going on, and that we certainly are going to take action, that we are going to be asking our staff to take whatever action they can, and they've been doing it. There's no question about that. Councillor Giacono and I get reports regularly from Ms. Sorial and bylaw enforcement. We know about dealing with the encampments. We know about dealing with the other issues that this is causing, including the drug houses. So I certainly think if we can recognize climate change as a crisis, this council can certainly recognize our current drug issue as a current crisis. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Purcell?
Thank you so much. I mean, I sympathize with, and I don't disagree in terms of the information that Councillor Keel has provided in regards to, you know, the drug utilization within our community. But I think it may be a little bit premature in terms of declaring a crisis. And the reason why I say that is McKay Manor, Ontario Addiction Treatment Centre, Ontario West 4 Weber's Health Team, Ottawa Valley Ontario Health Team, Pathways Alcohol and Drug Treatment Services, Pembroke Regional Hospital, Phoenix Centre for Children and Families, Renfrew County and District Health Unit, Renfrew and County Catholic District School Board, Renfrew County District School Board, Renfrew County Youth Wellness Hub, The Grind, the Town of Laurentian Hills, the Township of Emerson Bromley, the Township of South Algonquin, and of course, the Upper Ottawa Valley OPP. They agree that we're not in a crisis situation. We're actually down in terms of our stats from last year. As you're well aware, addiction and substance use disorders are chronic medical conditions. Criminalization of substance use disorder increases rather than decreases the associated risks and costs And I can provide you the studies in regards to the information that's provided here from, this is from the Ottawa Valley Health Team. The risk of death and other harms from overdose are also increased after following incarceration. As well, criminalization further isolates and stigmatizes people with substance use disorder and reducing the access, engagement, and positive outcomes for treatment. So that being said, maybe I'm part of the problem. Maybe I haven't communicated accurately in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. I thought I did that on a one-to-one conversation with Councillor Keel in regards to the drug strategy. So the individuals that I listed are all part of the partnering organizations in regards to the drug strategy. As you're well aware, we implemented MESA just in March of 2024. Which supports vulnerable individuals, including those that use substances. We established the Renfrew County District Drug Strategy Steering Committee and working groups for 4 different pillars, which I communicated clearly in this council. We have various different pillars, and those pillars are 4 in number in terms of the pillars. I'll just, sorry, just get through my presentation here. So those pillars are prevention, treatment, harm reduction, and community safety. So some of the things we're talking about in terms of community safety. We have identified individuals to work on these working groups, and we haven't received the recommendations from these working groups. So what I'm asking is that we're probably better off to table these motions until such time that we get the recommendations that come out of this steering committee that has all these individuals working diligently in terms of trying to address these issues, including the social issues, and looking at community safety efforts in terms of reducing the drug-related crime and community harms while supporting individuals that need treatment and recovery services. So the information that's current in regards to opiate and toxic drug deaths, it's changing, and for the good. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't change overnight. It could happen that it changes overnight. In 2023, we had 41, this is across Renfrew County, suspect drug toxicity deaths. This year, we're at 25, significantly down. I'll read you a response from Inspector Dool. He does not believe that the City Council of Pembroke should declare an illegal or toxic drug use in Pembroke a crisis for the following reasons. So he stated back in March of 2024, on the heels of the Belleville declaring a state of emergency or similar meeting was held at the City of Pembroke chambers with the emergency response leaders, and it was decided that the city would not declare, and that was an emergency at that time. Certain steps were taken to engage, support, and address the needs of the marginalized community members, as well as the public at large. The OPP did launch foot patrols with paramedics, which was unprecedented in Ontario, targeting potentially high-risk areas and community members frequently, and engage them more closely and offer supports. I did speak already in terms of the MESA, stood up in terms of March, and the result of the MESA outreach in connecting individuals with proper supports is successful. They've also ensured that their OPP mobile crisis response team, the MCERT, has stayed engaged with the at-risk individuals and have submitted a grant, which is still pending to be continued for the future program. Property crimes such as petty thefts, mischief in the city have shown a decrease of 9% year to date. Foot patrols in downtown Pembroke from January 24 to early November were 219.5 hours, which is very comparable. An update in regards to some of the initiatives in regards to the warming center councillor updates, which I could probably provide now. Even some of the we were looking at, and this is just recent news as of Monday, is that we're looking at a new location for the warming center. And that new location for the warming center was to be the farmers market. That's changed course. So now the warming center will be located out of the rear of the OATC building, and it'll be operated 24/7. So 24/7 by McKay Manor that have skill sets in terms of working with individuals with substance use and mental health concerns. The reason for that is that we've been advocating for extended hours, again, because last year, individuals that were utilizing the warming center and the grind services would end at 3:30 in the afternoon, and then the warming center would not open until 10 p.m. Lots of opportunity for trying to stay warm, maybe getting into mischief, no place, no sense of purpose, no belonging. So the reason for that is you'll see that that will take away some of the pressures in terms of the downtown. I know it will. And it'll be staffed with Mesa staff as well. So in the big picture, we also have 12 transitional beds that we just implemented at Carrefour. All right, we have implemented, sorry, bear with me, for East, for Renfrew County, the Rocky Mountain House, and we're using that for housing. We're in the West, we're using the Champlain Trail Motor Inn. Then we have Supporter Bridge Housing, that's at McKay Street. And now we have the warming shelter that's operating on a 24/7 for the next 5 months. So the next step is the Heart Hub. We have an application in for the Heart Hub. If we get the Heart Hub, be located at Carrefour McKay. People will be made referrals from the drop-in center that's out of the OATC to McKay Manor, and then they could transition into the transitional beds if they're successful in terms of rehabilitation. And then they enter the system. And the HPP system also houses individuals to get them moving along in terms of the system. The rock bottom component would be the warming center. So then they get into hotel stays. Then they get into, supportive housing, and then hopefully, resolve into regular housing. I think this is the solution, and not criminalizing individuals because they have a medical problem. That being said, I'm sympathetic, and I hear the issues. In fact, even my issue that I had in terms of the bench in front of the library, the one good thing is about the pillar is that we're looking at how we're going to resolve those types of gaps in terms of moving forward. But I think it's a little premature right now, and I do think that in the new year, we'll have the recommendations that are coming out of the steering committee, and I think it's really going to make a difference in terms of the quality of life for not only our residents, our downtown businesses, but the individuals that are utilizing those services. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Plummer, Councillor Lafreniere.
Thank you. I was on for a second the motion. I still do support the motion. Unfortunately, I don't have the statistics as Councillor Keel has or Councillor Purcell. I only can judge on what I've heard. We have two different, one says rates are going up and one says rates are going down. I can only attest to anecdotal responses and people basically contacted me, members of the public. They're concerned about drugs. They're concerned about individuals using drugs. They're concerned about finding paraphernalia around the city. So I have to go on that, what I've heard from citizens and what my people have talked to me about, and they are concerned. They want see some action from the city of Pembroke, and if declaring a crisis is that action and then leads to further action by the city or other motions or other activities can be taken place by the city, I'm in favor of that. So I will continue to support the motion, and if I don't discredit or anything that Councillor Purcell says, I recognize that he's working hard with other stakeholders, and I appreciate that and look forward to further reports. But on this particular motion, I will be supporting the mover. Thank you.
Councillor Lafreniere.
So I can't deny that a lot of the points in some of the resolutions, if I can reference advance, because there's more coming, I see some of the basis when it comes to trafficking. and penalties and the leniency that we are witnessing. You know, you hear someone was on probation for trafficking and then they breached and it's just repeated. So although I do think that that is where we should be going, is we should be going to the judicial system and saying, you know what, these individuals are coming to our community, most of them, dropping off their parcel. And I don't know why, for the life of me, they are putting poison in their drugs to kill their their customers. I don't understand that. But that's where I see this going. I agree with Councillor Purcell that the Renfrew County and District Drug Strategy is touching on all these points. And in this group of organizations that are getting together and meeting, they have the expertise, not city staff, when it comes to dealing with drug users or traffickers. Yes, the OPP have the ability, but without the judicial system backing them up, all we can do is try to mitigate the use and try to get these people some help. Because really, the officers are just going to arrest them, maybe, and they're going to be out in a couple of days. So I don't see that us getting harder at a municipal level is going to solve that. I think that the strategy is, part of this group is also reformed drug users. They're giving input of how is the best way to handle these things. So I think that that is where the expertise is going to come when it comes to mitigating these problems. I think we are coming around a curve. I know that there is apparently only one tent left. People are receiving help, and I know that a lot of those individuals have actually found housing because they were part of a program, and I can't remember the one, but it's basically if you've been off drugs this long, then we will assist you. And that's what's happening in our community. People are reaching out for help through MESA, through these programs. So you are going to see a reduction. I am confident of that. But I do agree with Councillor Keel when it says we need to be harder on these individuals that are coming and ruining it for our own residents in our community by keeping that poison there for these individuals that really need help. They don't need another fix. They need someone to say, we're here to help you. But we're not here to send you to jail because maybe you did. Maybe you were high and you left something somewhere you shouldn't have. That to me is not really going to help. It's just going to give us another expense on the OPP side of things. So although I understand where Councillor Keel is coming from, and he's coming from a place of concern, and I agree with some of them, but not all of them. So I kind of agree with tabling it till at least the spring and see where all this lands, because it's very liquid at this point. Everything's still moving, and we're waiting for a lot of things to come to fruition. So that is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jacquinot.
Your Worship, first of all, I want to recognize both councillors who I believe have their hearts in the right place. There seems to be a conflict in information, which I have a bit of an issue with. One statistic reports this, one statistic reports that. I'd like to see that, in a hard database and make my own determination. I admire your bravado for getting up and saying what you say about the drug people that are providing the drugs are scum of the earth. And I say bravado because I have to relate to you a story of a friend of mine who lived in Georgetown and made a similar statement. And he retired to a farming community. He was a farmer, and consequently, due to some of the statements, some organized crime group killed all his cattle, burned his house and his barn to the ground in Georgetown, Ontario. Now that's a stat. I know the individual. I'm just saying, this is a policing matter, perhaps. Are we sort of crossing the line as to what we do in the governance perspective, as opposed to what the police do and the judicial system does? I mean, I'm not a lawyer or a judge. I sit here and I also listen to the complaints of, the residents and try to help them or to alleviate the problems as they come forward, or send them to the proper individuals to see if they can be helped. I feel we perhaps, and I'm not trying to shove it aside, don't get me wrong, I respect you for your bravery. Getting up and saying what you said tonight takes a great deal of courage. And, but sometimes, you know, saying things has, and I'm not saying it's going to happen to anybody, has consequence, because we know that the drug trade is not run by Mickey Mouse individuals. It's run by organized crime syndicates. Not here, not in our community. They come here to collect the money, to perhaps drop off their shipments, and they go somewhere else. They may have agents here working for them. And I mean, having sat on a police board, we all understand that. I'm sure you've heard that information. Some of it may be confidential. I'm not going to share who these people are. But, you know, the policing individuals are aware of who they are. And they monitor them and monitor their activity. Now, they can't sleep with every individual, perhaps, that's, you know, on the street, the little guy pushing the dope. But they know where it's coming from, and given enough time and resources, I think they're going to, you know, put a clinch to it. Now, sending your resolution forward to, you know, the higher judicial system, I don't know if that's going to help anything. You know, a resolution, if everybody gets on board, I guess, but I don't know if that's going to solve the problem. I think local policing, people that are in the know, they know the context of who they're talking to, where these people are coming from, will probably solve the issue. Thank you.
You, Councillor Jagno. Deputy Mayor, I'm trying to go around once.
Thank you. So thank you, Councillor Keel, for your motions. I just have a question for Councillor Purcell, then I'll make another comment. Dr. Morgenstern, did you mention that in your report? And what was his opinion again? He's head of the health unit.
Councillor Purcell?
Thank you. This is the presentation that was provided from Dr. Morgenstern, personally. Emergency services. In here, it's got all the different partners in terms of the pillars, because they're the host organization that's supporting the great work that's happening out of the drug strategy. Our CIO is actually the chair for one of the pillars in regards to the community safety pillar, and I can give you some examples in terms of some of the discussions that are actually happening at that working group. You know, they're talking about enforcement, they're talking about social order, sharps disposals, a communication process, and some complaint reporting mechanisms. Because we recognize that we don't even have a complaint process or a reporting process in terms of identifying if there are sharps out there that, you know, need to be addressed. So these are the types of things. We've even had conversations with our bylaw officers and individuals and OPP in regards to how we're going to address very certain, you know, issues and concerns. Part of that safety community pillar is also our representatives from downtown Pembroke. And they heard the information in regards to that crime is down 10% downtown. The sharps things, we hear that. If we don't have a reporting mechanism to get in place, typically it's just hearsay. We just don't have that information and that proof. We're not seeing it in terms of the sharp pickups that the city of Pembroke is picking up through Parks and Recreation in terms of public lands. I mean, other than, you know, there was the encampment that was down below Mary Street Bridge last year, the year before, I guess. You know, there was a cleanup there. But the majority thing, and seeing only one homeless encampment, and then having a path forward in terms of how we're going to address these issues moving forward. And I just also don't want to hamper us getting a heart hub or you know, an opportunity to get additional funds. Next week, I'll be heading to McKay Manor, SUAP grant, $2.4 million that's going to be announced next week, right? To support our MESA and to support mental health and to support addiction treatment services. You'll hear more about that next week. You know, there's lots of great things that are happening, so just give it an opportunity to come to a head. Analyze what's in place. Is it working? Is it not working? Then we can motion in terms of to address all the gaps, because I'm sure that there will be gaps. to address those gaps and then move forward. But I think, I think we're gonna see a significant improvement over the winter in regards to the experiences of not only our residents, but those individuals seeking services. And the other one thing I wanted to talk about was, in terms, police seized hydromorphine and methamphetamine and a cell phone and approximately $6,000 in cash. These things are happening. I can give you a list of all these things that are happening in terms of the OPP, and they're aware. As much as you don't think that they're aware in terms of these houses or where the distribution is happening, they are aware, but there's a formal process that they need to follow. And I think they're doing a heck of a good job with the resources that they have. I'm not saying they don't have their own challenges. That being said, that's a different issue that we should address in the new year, because we recognize that there's staffing shortages, there's also those kinds of things too. But I think, working this end and not putting the pressures just on the police, but providing those services that are meaningful and supportive and, allows people the opportunity to get better, I think we're gonna be at a better situation. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, did that, Councillor
Yeah.
Purcell answer your question?
So yes, I
Did you
just
have-
comment, and it's a very complex issue, the drug, and it's terrible. And from a community watch point of view, we've had 2 meetings in the last year. We have the inspector attends, Constable Peaver attends, and the second last meeting we had, or the meeting before the last one, the street crime unit member came. And they were asked specific questions, and they were very upfront. We had over 35 members there, and they were very upfront. And I talk a lot to Councillor Purcell. The transitional housing play out, and then come back. And, you have 10 items tonight, and come back and see what we need to work on. But like you say, fill in the gaps and go from there. I'd like to see that first.
Well, we've gone around once, if I may, from the chair, if I can comment, and then we can either go around again or people can do whatever. Not that I'll start with this, not that I in any way discount the work that Councillor Purcell does, but I do attend the steering committee meetings because although, as Councillor Keel has commented, in terms of our office used to do drug prosecutions, this is different, if you will, and it's certainly, to me, it's not law. It's not something that I intuitively understand. And so to attend steering committee meetings is to avail myself of information so that I can try and wrap my head around what is going on in the community, because I can think back to March 2024 and I can think of the sudden deaths and I can think of pulling together certain emergency services to say, okay, what are we doing about it? And as Councillor Purcell says, it was unheard of to have the MCERT team, so OPP, working together with the paramedics to try and look at this and work together and try and address this head on the streets. And simultaneously was the steering committee, so the health unit. And so then the one stood down, and I acknowledge that. So it got stood down because that's where the focus should be, and pulling people together so that they're not in a silo. As I've told, I don't know how many people in the recent week, including an individual on the weekend that called me that wanted to talk about concerns about, they wanted to talk about homelessness, they wanted to talk about substance use, they wanted to talk about a number of different things that we understand to varying degrees on this council, because we're front line, we're the municipality, we are the level of government that's closest to the people in their community, because unfortunately all of that they had was front, whether it be off of Facebook or otherwise, but what they were believed what was going on may not necessarily reflect the different things that were going on to try and address it. As I've told different people in at least the last month, if it was, and I know Mr. Lewis was in the room, or still is, I know that I said from an operations perspective, I said, if I can throw $1 million at a street and it fixes the street, I'll probably be gone by the time that street ever needs to be touched again. So I said, it's in some respects easy to deal with operational issues because you throw a certain sum of money at it, it fixes it, and you never have to touch it again, at least in my lifetime. I said, but this is dealing with people. And I said, you can't throw $1 million at it and it'll go away. It's to try and figure out all the different, bring to bear all the different things to try and address what the solution is to some of the issues. And so similar to what Councillor Purcell is saying, perhaps I don't communicate the best to council when I tell you that the CAO and I appear with the MP or the MPP, and I don't get into specifics, but I'm telling you now that issues such as this are front and center as some of the issues. The number of police officers, front and center. The increased policing cost, front and center. In fact, I think we were the only municipality that actually went to go for MPP. I don't understand why, but the other ones, as I understand it, no disrespect to them, but I guess sent emails, letters, and so forth, and, raised bloody hell, but we choose to go and see our MP and our MPP and say, okay, what are we doing about it? Similarly, in terms of the inspector, something thinks like some of us is that if we can steal ideas from another municipality, we're going to steal the ideas from the other municipality and do what hopefully will prevail. But he was informed we're doing nothing different. Whereas in Pembroke, the MCERT team was working together with the paramedics. So that was something that was unheard of, and we heard about it at the steering committee. So there's just different things like that whenever that I'm trying to skip through some of the comments that I wrote down. We're doing a variety of different things. Sometimes there's just challenge watch program, whether it's CamSafe that came out of the police board, all these different things. We're all trying to pull in the same with the greatest respect to Councillor Keel, because I know what you're looking at is you're saying, okay, there's people calling me. What are we doing? What is the action that we're taking? And I largely think that unfortunately the public doesn't appreciate, and you're trying to educate them on all the different things that we're doing. Whether some of them believe us, I don't know. But certainly the one that I spoke to on the weekend then said, okay, I'll come back to you in 6 months and tell me where you're at, because I do want to see some progress to it. But certainly once they got the information, there was an understanding, or at least an education piece. And I know the steering committee has now created a communications committee, department, I don't know, so as to, because there was an acknowledgement, we're all understanding all this because we sit around the table now and there's no barriers, but the public doesn't know what it is that we're doing. So we need this communications pushed out from the health unit, and then the health unit says, okay, supporting partners, you need to push it out too, because maybe the public doesn't otherwise just intuitively understand everything that we're trying to do. So long story short, to say that I'm at the point right now where it's just not right now. Yes, there's pokers in the fire in terms of trying to do different things, whether it's heart hubs, it's the steering committee, it's conversations with our MPP and the MP. The MP is fully aware of the need to stop what some coin as catch and release. She's fully aware of it. She is trying to take certain steps to try and look at amendments to the criminal code, and working with the party that is in power to address that. I know Mr. Yakubuski certainly understands, and he's in fact got a YouTube now where he's in the legislature speaking to the issue of crime, and that the province needs to be tough on crime, and so they're trying to stay in their own spheres. But long story short, because I'm not going to go on all night about it, is just I would support tabling it, just because I for all of those reasons. Okay, so we're going around a second time. Councillor Keel.
Well, that was a long trip. I'll start with some of Councillor Purcell's comments. I'm getting this from the OPP detachment report. I'm not pulling these numbers out of thin air. He talks about property crime being down, and overall it is. but possession and trafficking stolen goods, up 66%. Mischief, up 10%. The reason that these motions are here is the drug crimes. Possession is up 3%, trafficking is up 20%. I get that there's ups and downs in these reports. I sat on the police board years ago. There's always ups and downs. But this is 2 years worth of increases in drug crimes. This is, again, this is, I don't know when your police board was, perhaps Councillor Lafreniere? October.
October 29th.
So that's where these statistics come from. So yeah, I get that there's probably all kinds of statistics out there, and it very well, to Councillor Purcell's point, I don't think he made it specifically, but I think he was making it in the sense that different places are carrying different statistics. And again, in this same report, it's the year-to-date statistics. Overdoses, and this would be the OPP's statistics. I'm assuming that if somebody overdoses at the hospital, the health board probably gets those and the OPP probably would not. But the OPP statistic was 24 in 2022, 27 in 2023, and 38 so far this year. So again, that's an increase. But where I think the whole point of me bringing these issues tonight, we have talked a lot about the health side of it. And I'm not saying that that's not important. And I think it was the deputy mayor that just said moments ago, this is a complex issue. All I'm saying to this council is we are focusing on heart hubs, we're focusing on warming centers, we're focusing a lot on the health stuff. That's not our prerogative, really. To speak to Councillor Giacono, we don't fund healthcare in the province of Ontario. All I'm asking is that this council take a moment to also think about the criminal and the community safety part. And Councillor Purcell aptly points out that's one of the pillars. It's a pillar we have not discussed around this table. I mean, Pembroke, for possibly the first time in recent memory, had a double homicide that's reported to have been drug related. How many people need to die before this council says, this is a bit of a crisis. We have a problem. We're talking about, we're pulling in the OPP, we're pulling in the health unit. The building's on fire. We're running around with fire extinguishers and that, but none of us are acknowledging it. And to the mayor's point about why the province is talking about taking a tough on crime position, why our federal members of parliament are, well, half of them are talking about taking a tough on crime approach. It's because nobody's acknowledging that criminal community safety pillar. You know what? I need to step it up a little. We're getting bombarded, and we now have a council in our city saying, we have a problem and we want you to take this more seriously. Because we are taking it seriously, and I don't deny the amount of work that Councillor Purcell has done, that Councillor Lafreniere has done, that the mayor has done, that the deputy mayor has done, but we don't think this is a crisis? I don't know that there's a larger issue that we're working on right now in the city of Pembroke. My own department is dealing constantly with encampments. We're dealing with drug houses now we're kind of getting into things later on. We're dealing with drug houses, but we don't have any tools. So we're going into a house to see, well, maybe the building code will let us do something. Maybe property standards will let us do something. Maybe the fire code will let us do something. We are doing some stuff, to Councillor Giacono's point. We are on the ground. It's not just the OPP. There are also property issues. So we are dealing with things, but as one of my motions says later, we need better tools. We need better focus. I think you're going to find in the budget coming up that our Councillor Giacono and my department, we have a new line item dealing with the encampments and stuff, because it costs money for the city to deal with it. So while I appreciate everybody's comments, all I'm asking for us to do for one night is to perhaps put aside the Heart Hub, put aside the warming center, and look at the other things that people are coming to us with. And I know it's not, I mean, we just went around the table and I think almost everybody acknowledged that, yeah, we're hearing this. But then we're going to say tonight, though, you know what, we can't put a word to it. We can't call it a crisis. We're working on it. We're working diligently, but just stand by. And I know, and I already spoke to Councillor Purcell about this as a courtesy, but I'm not prepared to stand by any longer. I mean, we had a community, everybody said, wait till the community safety plan comes out. Well, this community safety plan came out. That hasn't solved anything. It's a document. And then it was, well, wait till Mesa gets going and things will be better in the fall. Well, health-wise, they are best. But we just went through a summer, and the people around this table can't tell me that they didn't see the videos, the pictures. We saw the reports about wires being cut on buildings. Downtown had a rough time this summer. And that's why later we'll be talking about foot patrols. To stand here and say, you know, just give us more time and we hope things will be better. We're literally saying to the people, just leave us alone. We're working on it. We'll get there, we hope. And I got to tell you, I don't know that a large number of people, as to the mayor's point, we can't talk to everybody individually, but I don't know that a large number of people are actually seeing and believing that we're working on the community safety aspect. And I don't know that they would accept saying, well, let's wait again until the spring. So now we'll be, what, a year after the community safety plan. Let's wait until the spring now and, you know, we'll see what we have. So I would have never thought that declaring something a crisis when we know around this table what our departments have been doing, what other agencies have been doing. We got numbers of deaths, we got double homicides. I chose the word crisis because I didn't actually think that it would be a problem. I thought it would be us acknowledging to the people of the city of Pembroke that we see that there is a big problem right now. Obviously, calling it a crisis doesn't fix the problem, but it says to the people, we get it. We hear you, and we are telling you our staff is working on it, and we are telling you other agencies are working on it, and we are telling you it's top of mind. It's going to be top of mind at budget. We're going to be paying for the warming center. We're going to be paying for the additional money in my department dealing with encampment cleanups and enforcement and stuff like that. So there are some things in here that I think might have been a little overambitious of mine, which is why I broke it up, because I knew, you know, perhaps maybe some things will pass tonight, maybe other things wouldn't. But if we don't think that we're in a crisis, then I don't know what we're spending all of this time and all of this money on, and running around behind the scenes, as the mayor and Councillor Purcell in their views both pointed out, all the work that's being done. But we're not acknowledging to the public that this is a problem. So I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Keel, and I have Councillor, okay, thank you, Councillor Keel. Councillor
yet.
Giacono and Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Your Worship. When I hear the word crisis, I think of something that's really, really, really outstandingly bad. And I don't think we have a crisis. If we didn't have the warming center, if we didn't have the Care For project going forward, if we didn't have the Mesa group working and interacting with the other social groups that Councillor Purcell is talking about, to me, that would be a crisis. What we have is some work moving forward to help these people. And I mean, statistics are statistics. You know, you can use statistics to your advantage or to your disadvantage. And I mean, you know, I'm hearing one here, one there. I'd like to weigh that for myself and to see why there's some incongruence here with the statistics. So is somebody not communicating with somebody? But to me, you'd have a crisis if we hadn't taken action with the warming center. Okay, it's going to cost us some money. Maybe we should have had this thing resolved last January, saying, okay, now we're going to go ahead. We're not going to have a warming center. We're going to have this. But we need to have a warming center because we know people require a place to go after the grind closes to keep warm. I mean, you know, you're going to the bank. You don't want to be tripping over somebody who's sleeping in the vestibule just to stay warm. So they're going to have a place to go. Will we solve every problem? No. There'll probably be some folks that don't want to go and be warm. They like to be outside. They like to be away from areas where their stuff won't be gone through by other people. Things are stolen, etc. That happens. But to say it's a crisis, no, I cannot agree with you. I think if, as I said, we'd have a crisis if none of these other things were in place. I think we're moving forward. And crisis is wrong interpretation for me of a word for this situation.
Councillor Purcell?
Thank you, Chair. It's a tough one, it really is. This is, you know, it's a concerning issue for the community, the county, province, our country, North America. So this is an issue that probably no municipality has been spared. You know, we were at AMO in the summertime in Ottawa, 1,400 encampments, 1,400 encampments across Ontario. We have one, and it's going to be soon dismantled because there's a place for that individual to go. I don't even call it an encampment because it's one individual. I hear Councillor Keel, but I don't see the value in terms of doing that right now. It's not going to change. It's not going to really do anything to provide us any additional supports or services or those things. We've tapped all the services that we can actually tap right now. So I don't see the value in terms of doing some of these things. You know, we already just looked at the fortification bylaw. Yeah, I think I requested a copy in terms of our loitering bylaw. It's 1968. Maybe there's an opportunity to address that in terms of our littering bylaw. It's 1968. So there's an opportunity. That's stuff that we can do. Those are the pieces that I think that we should be working on as council. But, you know, talking to these individuals, and I'm not the expert either, but I tell you, when I listed off those names of individuals, they all agree that we're not in a crisis situation. These are the experts. I'm not the expert. They're the experts. They're the addiction treatment services workers that are out there on the streets. They're the grind. They're the hospital. They're the police. They're, our bylaw enforcement. We're not there. And I think the opportunity time is just to continue doing what we're doing. Don't take our foot off the gas. Continue implementing the initiatives that we have underway, addressing some of those loopholes that we can through maybe updating our littering policy, looking at our loitering policy. I think I gave an update in terms of we had a conversation with the town of Cobourg, looking at opportunities, how we can address some of the issues associated with drop-in centers and shelters. And you know what? That's valuable information because we actually incorporated it in terms of the Warpen Center operations. So, you know, we're moving things forward and we're learning as we go. And I think we just need to kind of allow that. And I don't think a month or 2 or 3 months is going to change, in terms of declaration, is going to change anything in 3 months. I honestly don't, because the momentum is there. We've got boots on the ground. We have people working diligently, even just getting the warming center up in terms of trades working this week, so it'll be open next week, right? So these things are all happening. We have the 12 beds that are opening up at the end of December. So all these things are in place, and I think we just got to give it time to let the dust settle and not to rally the community for really no purpose at all, right? Other than to get ahead in terms of some of these things that are happening. So I question the justification in terms of doing that now. Why did we do it last year when we had the 48 opiate deaths? Now we have 20. Why now? Why not last year when we really had an issue and we didn't have all these things in place and no vision in terms of how we're going to address these problems? So give it a few extra months and allow the support to get in place and then see what transpires then. And then if there are gaps, we can address them through a motion at that time.
Deputy Mayor?
I'll make a motion to table. If I were seconder.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Purcell. No discussion on a motion to table. Call the question. Those in favor of the motion to table?
I'll ask for a recorded vote.
Madam Clerk?
So there's on the floor, there's a motion to table. And it was asked for a recorded vote. So Deputy Mayor Brian Abdallah,
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Ed Jacado,
Yes.
Councillor Ian Keel,
No.
Councillor Pat Lafreniere,
Yes.
Councillor Andrew Plummer,
Nay.
Councillor Troy Purcell,
Yes.
and Mayor Ron Gervais.
Yay.
Okay. The motion to table passes by a vote of 5-2.
Okay. Next resolution is 2024-28, City of Pembroke's efforts regarding illegal and toxic drug use. Councillor Keel?
I'll withdraw that motion.
Okay. Next resolution, 2024-29, municipal request to federal and provincial governments to provide resources and tools to combat illegal and toxic drug use. Councillor Keel?
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Whereas residents of the City of Pembroke have experienced significant increases in drug crimes and drug-related crimes throughout the City of Pembroke, including increases in the frequency and severity of such crimes, and whereas local businesses, and particularly those in the downtown core, have been directly impacted by the higher incidences of drug crimes and drug-related crimes that increases business losses and expenses and decreases foot traffic, and the belief that certain parts of the City of Pembroke are safe and welcoming, and whereas residents of and private properties within the City of Pembroke have had to endure ongoing harassment and nuisances caused by illegal and toxic drug users, drug trafficking, and drug houses, including exposure to toxic drugs and drug paraphernalia, and whereas increased law enforcement efforts are needed to focus on those individuals and criminal organizations that illegally traffic and sell controlled substances and profit off of their drug-using victims, and whereas all levels of government share in the responsibility to combat illegal and toxic drug use, including the federal government's jurisdiction over criminal law and controlled substances, the provincial government's jurisdiction over healthcare and property regulation, the municipal government's role in bylaw enforcement and the provision of local services, including policing and social services, and whereas subsection 10.2 of the Municipal Act 2001 provides broad jurisdiction to signatory municipalities in matters relating to 1, the economic, social, and environmental well-being of the municipality, 2, the health, safety, and well-being of persons, and 3, the protection of persons and property, and whereas one of the highest priorities of any municipality must be the safety and security of its residents. Now, therefore, it is moved that the City of Pembroke's elected officials and staff carry out the following actions on behalf of the municipality. That the City of Pembroke calls on the federal and provincial governments to provide local governments and organizations, including municipalities, police forces, healthcare providers, social service providers, and addiction services with the necessary resource and tools to tackle the ongoing illegal and toxic drug crisis. And that a copy of this motion be posted on the city's website and also forwarded to the Honourable Arif Varani, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, the Honourable Doug Downey, Attorney General of Ontario, the Honourable Paul Calandra, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Mrs. Cheryl Gallant, Member of Parliament for Renfrew-Nipissing Pembroke, Mr. John Yakubuski, Member of Provincial Parliament for Renfrew-Nipissing Pembroke, and Mr. Peter Emo, Warden of the County of Renfrew.
With the indulgence of council, waive rereading of this resolution. Thank you. Councillor Keel?
I'll make this one short, Your Worship. Obviously, this, and this does follow on other municipalities, clearly calling for additional resources. It's quite clear that this is having a monetary effect on municipalities. It's clearly having a monetary effect on OPP costs. So I think the federal and provincial government jointly need to recognize the downloading of costs on us, and that specifically we need resources as it pertains to the drug crime issue and the opioid crisis.
Thank you. Councillor Lafreniere?
So in regards to this resolution and the following resolution, so I don't have to, I see some merit in these resolutions, but only if it's just slightly reworded, because it's not just our municipality. We should be circulating this resolution to other municipalities in Ontario, because they'd all jump on board, I believe, and you'd have more power. We often get resolutions brought to us from other municipalities for support. So this resolution, I would support it if it said something similar to, this resolution would be to advocate to the federal and provincial governments to advocate for more funding for such things as you mentioned. But on behalf of these municipalities, and like circulate it so that it's not just one municipality. Because let's face it, almost every municipality in Canada is facing this to some point. So they have to start addressing it and giving us resources. I guess what scares me though is like our OPP billing for next year is already high. They already get funding to do some of these things, to try to enforce it. But again, if it's not done at the judicial level, and that's what I'm recommending, is that Resolution D and E be reworded to basically target the changes that need to take place when it comes to the sentencing for repeat offenders when it comes to trafficking toxic drugs, not so much drug use, because they're always going to use it if it's accessible in our community. So I would only support those two if they were reworded slightly, and if it was a resolution encompassing other municipalities.
Other members of council, Councillor Plummer?
Thank you, Worship. I support this resolution and all the ones going forward. I've certainly read them and talked to Councillor Keel. Everything I think he's worded quite well in the way he's directed it. I don't think changing the motions at this point is prudent. But in the sense of to debate our fellow councillor member, that resolutions need to be forwarded to us that need, I guess, multitude of support. I think it's that a resolution that we would receive would already have that council support. So if we got a resolution brought to us from, I can't recall the exact one, but to jump on board and join the advocacy for that support, would that not community first approve that resolution and then send it out? Why would you wouldn't certainly not approve something that you are supportive and then send it to other communities for their comments or to jump on board? You certainly have to approve that resolution in your own council, send it, and then ask other communities to then join you. Thank you.
Councillor Plummer? Councillor Lafreniere?
Yes, and that's exactly what I meant. We wouldn't send it as it is. I would want to see some editing done to this and then see if this council would approve it. Of course, I'm not going to send something we don't approve. I mean, goes without saying. We would have to approve it first before we circulate.
Okay, other members trying to go around once here. Councillor Purcell?
Thank you, Chair. Maybe my question is just to Councillor Keel in terms of, I wonder if council will allow me just to sit down so I can have a little bit of access to my computer. I just can't read my computer, so I apologize. So in terms of cooperation, funding, and resources, what exactly are you looking for?
Bill?
Well, again, I think generally speaking, we obviously need more money for police, for the enforcement side of it. We'll go back to, we need more money for our heart hubs, we need more money for our warming centers. I mean, we need, as was explained earlier, we need money for a whole lot of things. But, I mean, to get into a motion and specify things, number one, I don't think the federal provincial government is going to care, because they're going to develop their programs after they decide to spend money on something. So generally speaking, I mean, I think we're talking about a pretty broad range of expenditures that frankly would be across the board. And when you're dealing with drugs, it's going to be from the healthcare side to the enforcement side. Obviously, we'll speak to this a little bit later, but to Councillor Lafreniere's point, you know, even the catch and release program, I got to tell you right now, my understanding is our jails are pretty darn full, if not at overcapacity. So if you are going to go down that road, that's going to have money involved as well. But I know we're spending money on Well, frankly, we're spending money, I believe, on Mesa at the moment, pending any future grants. We're spending money on the warming center. We're spending money on dealing with the encampments. We're spending money on enforcement measures, on property standards, fire code, and building code in dealing with drug houses. So there's a lot of places that we're spending money on this complex issue.
Thank you. I think the reason why I asked that is because, you know, in terms of the collaborative, intersectional, and interdisciplinary efforts, you know, the Mesa program, we received one year of funding in regards to get the Mesa, and we're looking at permanent funding. And I know that there's been efforts in terms of going down to the province and really kind of advocating on behalf of more permanent funding. And I know that it's an ongoing, and I know that you know, Roma is coming up, and maybe there's an opportunity to support a delegation at Roma for these types of things as well. And that the Renfrew County, you know, the Mesa Heart Hub application is looking good in terms of a model for wraparound services that was submitted in October. And I know that we were successful in terms of the Renfrew County Mobile Substance Use Service with Health Canada in regarding a SUAP proposal, and we actually received funding in regards to $2.4 million for an integrated and expanded impact of mobile services, the MESA mobile services, PRH, mental health services. Funding, you know, allows our mobile units to expand and services, including peer support, you know, immunization, wound care, chronic disease monitoring, opioid agonist treatment. It even has elder supports and traditional medicines and distribution of essential items, and of course navigation, referrals, and case management. So I'm just wondering in terms, I just want to make sure that it seems like we're doing okay in terms of the health component aspect in regards to getting those services and supports in place. But I want to make sure that, you know, we are lobbying for additional funds. Will this motion help us lobby for those types of funds for this particular initiative, or is it more along the lines in regards to resources to combat the illegal toxic drug use component, which is more or less the, you know, like I'm getting at in terms of the bylaw enforcement, the property standards, you know, the development of various different policies and bylaws so that we can, you know, tackle these types of issues.
OPP.
So maybe if it was just addressed that component, because I do think that we may have there's a little bit of uncertainty in my part in regards to exactly what the motion is requesting, and maybe we can kind of have some discussion in regards to, you know, is there an opportunity for those individuals that are participating in Roma to do a delegation, because we also have other pressing issues such as, you know, public health issues and those kinds of things as well. So, so again, I would think maybe it's best that we again motion to table and then just come back and revisit it. Let's just put a different lens in it. Come back and sit down, and I'm happy to sit down with Councillor Keel and put something together that we can bring forward at the drug strategy meetings and even at the fourth pillar, and identify, you know, where those gaps would be and see, you know, what we come up with. But I think right now I'm just not prepared to do that. And it's not that I'm not sympathetic in terms of the situation or the issues. Believe me, I understand. It's just that, again, it just may be a little bit premature.
Councilor Purcell, is that a motion to table or a suggestion, or?
I will motion to table.
Okay, is there a seconder for it? Seconded by Councilor Lafreniere. No discussion on motion to table.
Recorded
Is
vote.
someone asking for a recorded vote? There we go. Mr. CAO.
So it's a motion to table resolution 2024-029. And I'll go through. Deputy Mayor Brian Abdallah,
Yes.
Councillor Ed Jacquino,
Yes.
Councillor Ian Keel,
No.
Councillor Pat Lafreniere,
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Andrew Plummer,
Nay.
Councillor Troy Purcell,
Yes.
and Mayor Ron Gervais.
Yay.
The motion passes 5-2.
Next motion, resolution 2024-30, municipal request to federal government for new laws and more severe and new sentencing options concerning illegal importing, trafficking, and sale of controlled substances. Councillor Keel.
Well, Your Worship, that has to be the first time a municipal council didn't want to ask for more money. On this new motion, whereas residents of the city of Pembroke have experienced significant increase in drug crimes and drug-related crimes throughout the city of Pembroke, including increases in the frequency and severity of such crimes, and whereas local businesses, and particularly those in the downtown core, have been directly impacted by the higher incidences of drug crimes and drug-related crimes that increase business losses and expenses and decrease foot traffic, and the belief that certain parts of the city of Pembroke are safe and welcoming, and whereas residents of and private properties within the city of Pembroke have had to endure ongoing harassment and nuisances caused by illegal and toxic drug users, drug trafficking, and drug houses, including exposure to toxic drugs and drug paraphernalia, and whereas increased law enforcement efforts are needed to focus on those individuals and criminal organizations that illegally traffic and sell controlled substances and profit off of their drug-using victims, and whereas all levels of government share in the responsibility to combat illegal and toxic drug use, including the federal government's jurisdiction over the criminal law and controlled substances, the provincial government's jurisdiction over healthcare and property regulation, and the municipal government's role in bylaw enforcement and the provision of local services, including policing and social services, and whereas subsection 10.2 of the Municipal Act 2001 provides broad jurisdiction to single-tier municipalities in matters relating to the economic, social, and environmental well-being of the municipality, the health, safety, and well-being of persons, and the protection of persons and property. And whereas one of the highest priorities of any municipality must be the safety and security of its residents, now therefore it is moved that the City of Pembroke, as elected officials and staff, carry out the following actions on behalf of the municipality. That the City of Pembroke calls on the federal government to enact stricter laws as well as more severe and new sentencing options concerning those individuals and criminal organizations that engage in illegal importing, trafficking, and sale of controlled substances, and that a copy of this motion be posted on the City of Pembroke's website and also forwarded to the Honourable Arif Farani, Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of Canada, and Mrs. Cheryl Gallant, Member of Parliament for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Thank you. With the indulgence of council to waive rereading, and seeing nodding, Councillor Keel.
So this one, Your Worship, is clearly directed at our federal government, and I also want to make it clear it is directed, and I keep losing my motion when I hand it to the mayor. It is focused on drug trafficking, drug importers, and drug sellers. It is not focused on the users of drugs. At this point in time, I think there's a growing consensus in Canada, which, from a legal perspective, that's how I like to see things operate. I don't like sudden movements. I don't like up and down changes in the law from one government to another. I think we should be looking to our citizenry in terms of broad consensus, especially when it comes to our criminal laws. Certainly throughout history, we have had examples where our criminal laws have been used in very unfortunate and suppressing ways. But when it comes to those people that are importing drugs into Canada, they are particularly coming from China, they are coming from Russia, they're being smuggled in, and some of them are some of the worst forms of drugs and the most deadly types of drugs that we've ever seen, not just here, as Councillor Purcell noted. We very much have a North American drug trafficking problem, particularly coming from Asia. So this resolution is to encourage the federal government to take those steps that we've been hearing about in our communities, to make some of our laws stricter, to make some of our laws even looking at unique ways of dealing with things, harsher penalties, again, for drug importers, drug traffickers, and drug sellers. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I have the Deputy Mayor, then Lafreniere, and then Councillor Purcell.
So I'm going to support this motion. The drug laws need to be stricter. You cut it at the neck, and cut it where the source comes in. These traffickers come into the country, the community, the province, sell the drugs and leave, and we're left with the problems. And we know how things move in the federal government, very slow, but we need to send a message, and we need stricter laws, bottom line.
Thank you. Councillor Lafreniere.
Yeah, I'll wholeheartedly support this one. And I think this is where it has to change, or nothing will change. And so I thank Councillor Keel for bringing this forward. I still recommend that we circulate the resolution and maybe try to get some other municipalities on board with the same resolution, because power in numbers. Thank you.
You, Councilor Purcell?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I totally agree. I do think that, you know, these individuals are piranha and they feed off our vulnerable population. So I wholeheartedly agree with, you know, looking at and advocating on behalf of, you know, more sentencing options when it comes to individuals and organizations that are trafficking illicit drugs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Jacquino?
Agreed.
Anyone else wish to speak to it? Does anyone want a recorded vote? Mr. CAO?
Dave's got to do something.
So we're, recorded vote was called for Resolution 2024-030, municipal request to federal government for new laws and more severe and new sensitive options concerning the legal importing, trafficking, and sale of controlled substance. Deputy Mayor Brian Abdallah,
Yes.
Councillor Ed Jacquino,
Yes.
Councillor Ian Keel,
Yes.
Councillor Pat Lafreniere,
Yes.
Councillor Andrew Plummer,
Yay.
Councillor Troy Purcell,
Yes.
and Mayor Ron Gervais.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Plummer. These whereas statements are exactly the same as the last several. Would I be able to get unanimous consent to move past the whereases? Now therefore it is moved that the City of Pembroke, its elected officials and staff carry out the following actions on behalf of the municipality. That the City of Pembroke calls on the provincial government to enact new laws and regulations that will give municipalities and victimized property owners additional, better, and more efficient tools to deal with drug houses and other drug-related nuisance properties that are antagonizing and devaluing local neighborhoods, and that a copy of this motion be posted on the City of Pembroke's website and also forwarded to the Honourable Doug Downey, Attorney General of Ontario, the Honourable Paul Calandra, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and Mr. John Yakubuski, Member of Provincial Parliament for Renfrew, Nipissing, and Pembroke. And of course, you know, one of the comments that struck me at that time was the police, I believe it was Sean Peaver, that said, if you know where a drug house is, we know where a drug house is. But there's not a lot that they can necessarily do. Police can't just walk into all of our houses, with good reason. They have to get warrants, they have to have informants, they have to have evidence in order to go in and bust the criminals, but that doesn't necessarily take away from the drug house. We know from a prior example on Alfred Street where, yes, there were arrests, and the drug house just kept going. Because probably it wasn't just one individual. And then, of course, as Councillor Lafreniere brought up first, the catch and release program, they come back to the drug house. At the moment, the municipality has we have no direct tools to deal with known drug houses that are causing a problem. And, you know, I want to be clear here. We're asking the provincial government to give us some tools. I would expect the provincial government to think about those tools. You know, I'm not asking the province to say that, you know, our mayor and CAO can go knock on a door and kick everybody out and there you have it. But when we have an actual problem on our hands, right now, our bylaw officials, our building code officials, our fire officials, they're using legislation, the Fire Prevention Act, the Building Code Act, that wasn't meant to deal with this particular problem, but on the periphery, it sometimes lets them in. And then if there is a fire issue, they can, you know, they can remove the people from the drug house. If there's property standards, and I'll be honest with you, I know of a couple cases in Pembroke where the landlord themselves is not happy with what's going on in their house. But the landlord and tenant board is also not helpful in removing the problem. The municipality, as some councillors might be aware of, somewhere in the 400s of the Municipal Act, the municipality does have the ability to go to a Superior Court judge and shut down a nuisance property. We first have to have our chief of police on board. We then have to notify the province of the issue, and we then have to go through a regular court application, which is both costly and time consuming. So I don't want anybody to fear, and I mean this, I truly mean this. If you have a relative or somebody living with you, we're talking about, as the city of Pembroke always does, properties where we need to do something. You know, we at the city of Pembroke, even in our property standards, we're a complaint-based system. Again, we don't go looking for things. And once again, to the point that was made earlier, I'm not an expert on this. I know from hearing with Colleen, the cry is that we don't have a way really to deal with these. So I am asking the provincial government this issue and consider what tools, what regulations they can give to municipalities so that we can more quickly and efficiently deal with these problem drug houses. And I can also advise that I did ask the CAO, and I realize now that I don't think I actually sent the email back to him. I have asked for a delegation at Roma to also discuss this with the minister. Again, it's not about, you know, this one I'm less worried about council, I'm more worried about citizens watching at home. It's not about us giving powers to go and kick you out of your house. But when you have an actual drug house, and when it's bringing down property values, when it's causing nuisances to neighboring places, these are places that are not upkept very well. They're dangerous to the occupants that are inside, some of which are the vulnerable drug users that we were talking about. We need better tools to address these drug houses more quickly and efficiently. And I think the province should be able to, one, have better resources in looking into it and determine what powers and regulations they could provide us to do just that.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Purcell?
Just willing to second.
Seconded, but do you want to speak to it though, or?
He'll third it. I'll third it, yeah. Just that I agree. I think that, you know, having some additional tools in the toolbox to address these types of properties would be beneficial for our community and other communities.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have Councillor Purcell and then Councillor Lafreniere.
Yeah, so I'll support the motion wholeheartedly. At the last Community Watch meeting, we had a resident with concerns, which is going to become a Community Watch zone. Then we had the meeting a year and a half ago with Alfred Street residents. So it's a broad motion, but it'll tell the province, you know, power. So, thank you.
Councillor Plummer?
As I do support the motion, I would like to add a quick detail. That Alfred Street house has been cleaned up. It has been completely renovated and it was put on the market. So it does have a good news story at the end. You know, you do work hard, and I think there was definitely some negotiation with the former owner to then part with the house and then put it on the market, was sold. And then, of course, someone else purchased it, fixed it up, and now it's actually a good-looking house in the neighborhood. And so it's a good news story that it can be done. You can fix rough houses.
Councillor Lafreniere?
Yeah, I'm going to be supporting this resolution as well. And just to comment in regards to like the Alfred Street, we all know about that. A lot of the times the homelessness situation is what aggravates the drug houses because they can't afford a place to live. So where do they go live? In a drug house. So I do like what Councillor Keel said is we don't go looking for problems. If it's drugs, I don't know. That's not up to us to judge. So, but I like the fact that it might give landlords some fuel as well as the OPP a little more fuel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Jacquino, did you wish to speak to it?
No, you don't.
Does anyone want a recorded vote?
We might as well, yes.
Request for recorded vote, Mr. Zio.
Okay, so recorded vote was requested for resolution 2024 2024-031, a municipal request to provincial government to enact new laws and regulations to deal with drug houses and other drug-related. Councillor Troy Purcell,
Yes.
Mayor Ron Gervais.
Okay.
What's that? Okay. So the motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. Next resolution, 2024-32, request to the Ontario Provincial Police, Upper Ottawa Valley, Pembroke, to attend before council, the city of Pembroke, to present actionable plan to combat local drug crime, drug-related crime, drug trafficking, establishment of drug houses in the city of Pembroke. Councillor Keel.
Your worship, I would seek unanimous consent to once again skip the whereases.
Yes.
Now therefore it is moved that the city of Pembroke, its elected officials and staff carry out the following actions on behalf of the municipality. That a request be made to the Ontario Provincial Police, Upper Ottawa Valley Detachment, Pembroke, to attend before the council of the city of Pembroke within 90 days to present an actionable plan to combat local drug crime, drug-related crime, drug trafficking, and the establishment of drug houses in the city of Pembroke. It may speak to one of your points earlier about whether we're communicating effectively with the public about what we are doing. I know from attending the community safety meetings, and the mayor and the deputy mayor would both know that they communicate quite well. And sometimes the residents talking to the police are not particularly happy. So, your worship, I'm not going to speak at length. This is just a request that I think it would be beneficial, not only to us around the table, because not all of us attend the community safety meetings, but I think it would be beneficial to the public for the OPP to share, quite frankly, some of the same points they have shared at the community safety meeting, but also, you know, tell us from their perspective what they are doing in terms of drug-related crime. And I know from way back, your worship, in fact, I was on the police services board, and this room was configured slightly differently. I know we had someone from the street crime come and do a slide presentation, and the only thing I took from that is that a very small amount of some drugs can kill a number of elephants, because that was the chart that they were showing us in terms of the lethal effect of some of the drugs. So I present this invitation to the OPP, and I hope that they would be pleased to accept.
Thank you. Councillor Giacono.
It's in resolution or whether it's an invitation, I think that Sergeant Neufeld would come gladly. I think that it may be well suited to come to council chambers, and I would love to see the Crime Stoppers come with him and explain their program, because it's extremely beneficial to our community to have that program. It's an anonymous tip line, and actually there's been a lot of busts attributed to those types of calls. I guess what only disturbs me here is actionable plan, and I know that in your explanation further on when you were reading your resolution, it said without disclosing any, you know, operations. So I think an actionable plan would be something. I wouldn't expect him to come and say, okay, I'm going to do this first, then we're going to do this. And I think they're doing everything now, but as you say, a lot of it's confidential. There's always an operation going on.
That we don't get pigeonholed into a few different issues. So I would like to see a more broader discussion with the OPP. You know, domestic violence. Like, you can't tell me that's not an epidemic, right? Intimate partner violence. You know, I think it was 30 last week in Renfrew County.
It is a crisis.
No, 30 last week. Human trafficking is another issue. So, I mean, I don't want to be pigeonholed in terms of just talking about a plan in terms of or addressing just the concerns in regards to drugs. I would rather have, you know, the OPP come here and have open discussion in regards to all the different initiatives that are underway. And not only that, also, you know, the concerns that resonate in regards to staffing and making sure that, you know, that we have a true understanding in terms of the resources that are available.
Thank you. If I may, from the chair, I spoke to the inspector in respect to this particular motion. He has expressed to me that he is always willing to come and speak to council. He need only receive a request. In addition to the times that he already comes, I've said it before to this council that sometimes we bring motions that I don't understand why, because we simply just need to make the request. And in this particular case, I don't support the motion simply because I think all that would be required, why the resolution was, that came forward, I don't remember if it was last meeting or the meeting before, in terms of intimate partner violence, because yes, there's a number of different very scary trends that are going on that aren't necessarily drug-related, but in any event, I don't know if anyone else wishes to speak to it, and then Councillor Keel.
So to Councillor Jacquinot's point, I certainly, I mean, again, we've spoken so much tonight about the scale of the drug problem that we're experiencing. We're not calling it a crisis, but certainly we've spoken to the scale of it. I'm not going to blindside our inspector in January or February when he comes about an issue that I'm hearing about pretty much on a weekly basis. So I certainly don't I don't discount what Councillor Purcell is saying either. There's all kinds of topics that he could come and discuss. But again, the purpose of my night tonight was to discuss the community safety aspects of our current drug problem. And then to the mayor's point, I think the mayor in the same sentence said, I don't know why we need a resolution. We just need the police will come with the will of council. Well, procedurally, the last time I checked, you get the will of council by asking council what it wants to do. So I certainly didn't mean to bring a frivolous motion, but motions are how council asks for council to have the OPP to tend to talk about drugs when we're talking about the wastewater treatment plants. So I apologize if this was the improper way of getting council's will, but I don't know what other way there would have been.
Councillor Jacquinot, and then I'm going to ask whether or not we want a recorded vote, or we're just going to proceed.
Thank you,
with
Your
the vote.
Worship. It's just when I look at the resolution, you know, you're not requesting, you're almost delegating him to be here. You shall attend. I mean, that's the implication I get, you know, that you're not doing your job, and we want to know what's going on. And that's the way I take that resolution, so I would not be voting in favor of it, because...
Brandon Abdallah?
No.
Councillor Ed Jacquinot?
No.
Councillor Ian Keel?
Yes.
Councillor Pat Lafreniere?
Yes.
Councillor Andrew Plummer?
Yay.
Councillor Troy Purcell?
Nay.
Mayor Ron Gervais?
Nay.
Nays have it 4-3. The motion is defeated.
Next resolution, 2024-33, request for more frequent OPP foot patrols. Councillor Keel.
Whereas residents of the city of Pembroke have experienced significant increases in drug crimes and drug-related crimes throughout the city of Pembroke, including increases in the frequency and severity of such crimes, and whereas local businesses, and particularly those in the downtown core, have been directly impacted by the higher incidences of drug crimes and drug-related crimes that increase business losses and expenses and decrease foot traffic, and the belief that certain parts of the city of Pembroke are safe and welcoming. And whereas residents of and private properties within the city of Pembroke have had to endure ongoing harassment and nuisances caused by illegal and toxic drug users, drug trafficking, drug houses, including exposure to toxic drugs and drug paraphernalia. And whereas increased law enforcement efforts are needed to focus on those individuals and criminal organizations that illegally traffic and sell controlled substances and profit off of their drug-using victims. And whereas all levels of government share in the responsibility to combat illegal and toxic drug use, including the federal government's jurisdiction over criminal law and controlled substances, the provincial government's jurisdiction over healthcare and property regulation, and the municipal government's role in bylaw enforcement and the provision of local services, including policing and social services. And whereas subsection 10.2 of the Municipal Act 2001 provides broad jurisdiction to single-tier municipalities in matters relating to the economic, social, and environmental well-being of the municipality, the health, safety, and well-being of persons, and the protection of persons and property. And whereas one of the highest priorities of any municipality must be the safety and security of its residents, now therefore it is moved that the City of Pembroke, its elected officials and staff, carry out the following actions on behalf of the municipality. That the City of Pembroke requests that the OPP, Upper Ottawa Valley Detachment Pembroke, conduct more frequent foot patrols in target areas, including but not limited to the downtown core, and that a copy of this motion be posted on the City of Pembroke's website.
Again, with council's indulgence, if waive rereading of the motion. Councillor Keel.
So, Your Worship, this has probably been one of the most frequent questions that I've been getting from downtown business owners. Obviously, it was I think it was in the spring. I don't want to speak out of turn. I think your worship was involved in the announcement that we should be seeing more frequent foot patrols and whatnot in the downtown. So when I started digging into it, your worship, my concern got a little larger. Number one, I'm not going to name names, but business owners and members of the PBIA did not notice any significant increase in foot traffic in the downtown. Obviously, we had a number of even daytime incidents involving individuals relieving themselves and doing other things in the broad daylight downtown during business hours. But then when I looked into this OPP report, what concerned me most, your worship, is the statistics, not just on foot patrols, but on patrols generally speaking. In 2022, there was 200.75 hours of foot patrols. In 2023, that dropped to 132, where at the moment it remains roughly the same, 132.75. So despite there being talks of an increase, we have a steady number in the July to September daily activity report. When I look overall, I'm actually more alarmed. So this report deals with patrol cruiser, well, we've never had any patrol aircraft. Patrol motorcycle, we've never had any of those. Patrol marine, patrol ATV, patrol foot, and patrol school. In 2022, there was a combined number of 1,103 patrol hours. In 2023, and this is July to September. In 2023, it jumped from 1,100 down to 600. And from 2023 to 2024, it dropped from 676 to 457, another 200-hour drop. So Councillor Giacono spoke during the last motion that we might be telling them that they're not doing their job. From my perspective, they're not doing their job. I have great respect for police officers and the work that they do, and they put their lives on the line every day. They don't know what they're about to walk into. But administratively, we have dropped in 2 years from 1,100 to 400 patrol hours. And again, this is the, I think Councillor Lafreniere said the October report. So this is about as up to date as I think you can get. So in the spring, we were hearing encouraging news that there was going to be an increase in foot patrol. That doesn't bear out, and in fact, I'm not on the Police Services Board, but I am a councillor for the City of Pembroke, and I find that to be a horrible drop. I have a feeling that at least somebody here is going to mention, well, they're short resources. That's not my problem. And I say that with no respect whatsoever. If I hire a gardener to come and tend to my yard during the summer, and the weeds start getting out of control, and he says, well, Ian, I'm having a hard time hiring, that's not my problem. We would never accept that for anything else. Now, I think the police do, properly so, have some built-in base respect, and I don't deny that. But when we switched to the OPP, they were promising all these resources, and they were promising all these administrative resources. Right now, that's not bearing out. And they very well might have a hard time hiring, but that's a them problem. We're about to see, potentially, our OPP bill go up $800,000, and we're getting less for it. And again, it very well might be because of a human resource issue, but again, that's not our problem. We aren't asking the OPP to please come and police our community. We're contracting with the OPP. It's a contract. We're hiring them to do a job. And right now, from my perspective on this issue, there's many issues I could praise them on. And if it wasn't 9:15 at night, I would prove that to you. There's lots of good things that I can tell you about our OPP. But these patrols, when they're out in the community, this is not a high spot for them. And I would hope that they would actually recognize that this is not a high spot for them at the moment. So in this regard, I am requesting that they do more patrols, and specifically foot patrols, because we need them out in the community. And they did a great job of that when we first had the OPP. I remember when the Pembroke police went out and the OPP came out, I thought I was being tailed, because everywhere you went, there were cars, there were officers downtown. We're not seeing that now. And again, they very well might have an explanation for it. But an explanation by any other name is an excuse. And we're hiring them to do a job. And I want to see, on behalf of the residents of the city of Pembroke, I want to see them out patrolling more. And again, I also want to be clear, I'm not pointing fingers necessarily at our local detachment. I do have reason to believe that this is a province OPP-wide issue. But again, we're the client. We hired them to do a job. Maybe I have too high of expectations, but seeing patrols go from 1,100 to 400, I don't like seeing that.
Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Purcell?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I saw that discrepancy in the report as well, and that's why I was concerned about, the staffing levels, ensuring that we have the appropriate staffing levels when it comes to policing. And then also, and maybe that's a broader discussion to have with the inspector when he does come here in terms of, the calculation in terms of the policing costs. It's based on, staffing availability to provide those services. So, why are we paying, an extra 3.25% in terms of levy and not getting those police services, or potentially not getting those police services? But I'd like to hear that information coming from the inspector. So again, I would just put that invitation out there in terms of, I look at the patrol numbers, and I even question in terms of some of the accuracy in terms of the numbers, because I'm pretty sure I was out of my ATV in terms of police costing if we don't have a full complement of services. So I would propose that, again, we table until we have the inspector come and provide us an overview.
And, okay, that was what my request was going to be, is what you were meant. Councillor Giacono, are you seconding?
I would second that.
Okay, no discussion on a motion to table. Does anyone want a recorded vote on the motion to table?
Vote.
Mr. CAO.
Okay, so the motion to table resolution 2024-033, request for more frequent OPP foot patrols was requested, recorded vote. Deputy Mayor Brian Abdallah.
Nay.
What is the, sorry, reread that again, please?
So we're voting on the motion to table the resolution 2024-033, the request for more frequent OPP foot patrols. So to table.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
go ahead. You got my vote?
Yeah, nay. Councillor Ed Giacono.
Yes.
Councillor Ian Keel.
Nay.
Councillor Pat Roy-Frenier.
Nay.
Councillor Andrew Plummer.
Nay.
Councillor Troy Purcell.
Yes.
Mayor Ron Gervais.
Yay.
The motion to table is defeated 4-3.
Okay, so does anyone else wish to speak to the motion in terms of the foot patrol? As the deputy mayor.
Yeah. So I sit on the PBA board, and I have a strong affinity for the downtown, being family business and everything, for the waterfront, and I just want to put that on the record, that we've requested more foot patrols, so it's there. I know you can pick up the phone and the inspector will come to our meeting, which he will. I have the utmost respect. But I just want it on the record that we've requested more foot patrols as per the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Fernier, and then I'll speak to this motion.
So, I don't mind requesting more foot patrols, I think that it is important in a community, especially in the warmer months. I just took I get a little defensive when the comment was, I feel they're not doing their job. Those officers, when I heard that, I mean, maybe when you look at the statistics, you think they're not doing their job. Well, they're putting their lives on the line every day, and with the situations we're talking about that are happening in our community now, they never know what they're going into. But I guess aside from that, one of my concerns, and I think it is important we get the detachment commander here, is just to explain, because I know when we first went to OPP, we wanted so many dedicated officers because we wanted to mirror our past police force. That has changed. The whole way that the OPP assigns officers to communities is different. We may not have Joe, whatever, assigned to Pembroke. He will be the OPP, but he could be called to Petawawa, he could be called anywhere. So at any given time, we've got officers traveling from one municipality to the next, depending on the demand. And let's face it, they're in demand. And we talked about some issues tonight, domestic violence, whatever, theft. They're being called in all different directions. So I think that really skews the numbers. And I think they do have a good presence. I see them everywhere. And now whether they're reporting to Petawawa when I see them driving through town, I'm not sure. But I think I supported this resolution because I do want explanations for you council members. Because when we sit at the board level, they explain to us. But in months go by and it's like, okay, yeah, what was the explanation for that? It satisfied me at that meeting, but I want you all to hear it. So I think it's really beneficial that he does come and he gets a nice little invitation to come and speak to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Lafreniere. And I have written down to request that the inspector come to speak to all the different issues. I can indicate to you, though, legislatively, it's the Police Services Board that is in charge of adequate and effective policing, not the council. I did talk to the inspector talk to him. I sent him an email in respect to this motion. The response I got was dated November 9th. And what he indicated in respect to foot patrol, just in the downtown core, from January 1st, 2024 to that date, was 219.5 foot patrol hours. In 2023, same time frame, it was 222.75 hours, which he indicated was very comparable. So on the issue of foot patrol, year over year, it's comparable as indicated by the inspector. I will request that he come, but I suspect he's going to say the same thing that he's already told me, but in any event. So having said that, do we want a recorded vote in respect to this motion?
Sure.
Mr. Zio.
Yes, a recorded vote was requested for resolution 2024-033, request for more frequent OPP foot patrols. Deputy Mayor Brian Abdallah.
Yes.
Councillor Ed Jacquino.
No.
Councillor Ian Keel.
Yes.
Councillor Pat Lafreniere.
Yes.
Councillor Andrew Plummer.
Yay.
Councillor Troy Purcell.
No.
Mayor Ron Gervais.
Nay.
The motion passes 4.
Next one is resolution 20, so that was 34. Resolution J, resolution 2024-35, making illegal use, littering, disposing, or depositing of drugs, drug residue, or drug paraphernalia on private property. Councillor Keel.
Are these the same as 34 and 35?
They're similar.
I will withdraw this one.
Thank Thank you. Next one, Resolution 2024-36, Community Improvement Plan Grant for Purchasing of New Security Systems with a Public Benefit and Promotion of the CamSave Program. Councillor Keel.
Your worship, I would seek unanimous consent to refrain from reading the whereases,
Nodding, yes.
or Councillor Lafreniere's consent. Now therefore, it is moved that the City of Pembroke, its elected officials and staff carry out the following actions on behalf of the municipality. The council directs staff and the Community Improvement Plan Committee to research, develop, and propose a new CIP grant that would provide financial assistance to persons or businesses purchasing security systems that would have a public benefit to them, including but not limited to the installation of outdoor security cameras that could be accessed if and when needed by local police or by law enforcement to assist in the solving of local area crimes. And number two, that the City of Pembroke continue to support and promote the use by local residents of the CamSafe program that allows property owners with security cameras to register their cameras with law enforcement, who can then call on the residents for access to their cameras if a crime is committed in the area, and that a copy of this motion be posted on the City of Pembroke's website.
Thank you. Council's consent to waive rereading. Everyone's lethargic. Councillor Keel.
So your worship, I'm going to make this one fairly short. I know we've spoken a lot about the CamSafe program, which allows individuals who currently have cameras to register their camera with the OPP. It does not give them access to your camera. It lets them know that you have a camera, and if something happens nearby, the OPP can come make a request of you to voluntarily share your camera footage. With respect to the CIP grant, your worship, I know from your prior comments, I think they were at the ECDEV committee. I know that this is something that that is in the works, but I also know from talking with our staff member that that the CIP program, making changes to it is an involved process. And so the purpose, your worship, of this particular motion is me suggesting that I do think that moving forward with that CIP, with a new CIP program for security systems and cameras would be beneficial. And I say this because if we do get more cameras out there, it's not even, my concern isn't even necessarily catching the criminals. My concern is that maybe more people seeing more cameras out there are going to start having second thoughts about a number of the lower end crimes. So again, your worship, this is more of it doesn't have any particular timeline or anything, but it is meant to be, I suppose, a communication to staff of all the priorities that the staff have, and they do have lots. It's my opinion, because of the fact that this could help stop crime, that I would like to see it moved further up the massively large pile of initiatives that I know we ask our staff to take care of. For those councillors that may not be aware, it is Miss Sutherland, so she is basically our primary person in economic development, but she's also the CIP, what do we call them, your staff liaison, is that what we're, okay. She's also the CIP staff liaison. I know she has a lot of work on her plate. I talk with Ms. Sutherland a great deal, and I know there's things even, from 2 years ago when we were running in the campaign, there's things that I would like to put on her plate. But for me, this one is just an important initiative, and that's what I am hoping we'll highlight tonight.
I have the deputy mayor, then I have Councillor Purcell.
So I have a question for the mayor. Who sits on the CIP committee? Who's on that committee?
I can't, it's to authorize grants, but there's
Okay.
myself, there's Mr. Levesque, there's Mr.
Right. No, I mean
Saint Jean.
council members. Yourself and,
So there's myself.
okay. So isn't this, you and I were discussing the other day, isn't this already in the works? That Ms. Sutherland is working on a report to bring to the CIP committee for the potential camera grant?
So it's out of order if council wants me to speak to it out of order, because usually I would wait to the end.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to it.
So just very quickly, given the hour, council will recall that budget for 2024, the request by staff was to have a consultant to amend and work on the amendments to the CIP program in respect to security, and I know that the PBIA, there was a meeting talking about lighting, talking about cameras and so forth. This council decided not to leave it in the budget, so it got removed, which put it solely on the hands of one economic development officer. So that's where it is. I do know that the economic development officer does a wonderful job, but I can tell you that the economic development officer is trying to do the business retention and expansion program largely by herself because the consultant is no longer with the city of Pembroke. And so conceivably, I don't know how she can do everything. So whether this motion is there or not, I having a hard time, but I can tell you that in the mayor's breakfasts and so forth a year ago, I talked about it. But anyways, I hope that answers your question.
So, I'd like to move to table. This is in the works, so move to table. We'll come back with the report anyhow.
Is there a seconder for the motion to table? Councillor Purcell, it's a second? Yes. So I have a motion to table on the floor, no discussion at this point. Is there a motion for is there a recorded vote request? Yep. Yes.
Okay, so there's a motion to table resolution 2024-036, Community Improvement Plan Grant for the purchasing of new security systems with a public benefit and promotion of the CAMSTAFE program. So just a reminder, this is a motion to table that resolution. Deputy Mayor Brian Abdallah,
Yes.
Councillor Ed Jacquino,
Yes.
Councillor Ian Keel,
No.
Councillor Pat Lafreniere,
Support the program, but it's in the works, so. Yes.
Councillor Andrew Plummer,
Nay.
Councillor Troy Purcell,
Yes.
Mayor Ron Gervais.
Yay.
Motion to table passes 5-2.
That concludes motions for this evening. Moving to the mayor's report. On November 8th, Councillor Jacquino and I attended Lifemark Health Center Pembroke, located in the Pembroke Mall. It is a multidisciplinary clinic which includes physiotherapists, occupational therapists, a massage therapist, and kinesiologists who are dedicated to helping individuals with their health and wellness goals. They serve not only the military, but the public as well. Later that day, I had the pleasure of attending the official opening of the Pembroke Silver Stick. This year, they are celebrating their 40th anniversary. This is a huge economic activity to our area. Please welcome all the visitors with our Valley Charm, and the tournament is still going on, so please support the many individuals that are coming to our area, and I know you will. November 11th, the Legion Branch 72 did an outstanding job, as always, with the Pembroke Remembrance Day ceremony. We are forever indebted to the brave souls who fought in the many battles, many of whom giving the ultimate sacrifice, lest we forget. It was a pleasure to attend the Horticultural Society Anniversary Gala on November 14th on behalf of Council, together with the Deputy Mayor. Certainly this is a great partnership between the City of Pembroke and the strategic partnership with the Pembroke Horticultural Society. Certainly there was a warm welcome for this particular event, and we brought greetings on behalf of the City of Pembroke. Today, very special day, I was invited to attend at the Garrison by Colonel Guinea. We have a much better relationship, not that it was poor before, but a very good relationship with the garrison. The purpose of today was to get a presentation as to what is taking place on the garrison this year and for the next number of years in terms of a deployment. As I understand it, it's the biggest deployment that we have seen in many, many years, including going to Lafayette. Following the presentation, we had an opportunity. It was the mayors from all the way from Head Clare Mariah to Arnprior. We had an opportunity to go to the range and observe and watch as they went through their practice drills in respect to the different lavs and what it takes for these different military individuals to represent us on the global stage. The colonel was very clear that the military values the relationship with all of us civilians. As I said, it's a significant deployment that we had not seen in years. It will have a tremendous effect on our community, and the request is to please consider and support their members and their families during this time. As always, stay safe and be kind to one another. Councillor updates. Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship, Santa Claus is coming to town next Saturday. Councillor Lafreniere, I have the honor of being the announcers again. It's always a thrill. And it's going to be on Kojiko at 5:45, but I believe it leaves the Metro at 5:30. Is that correct? And we're expecting a huge crowd downtown again, and we want to thank the Parks and Recreation Department for putting that on. It's a big event. This past Sunday, my wife and I attended the 50-plus Active Living Center Christmas tea, and it was a very well sold-out show, and our own Councillor Purcell did a great job of serving the tea. So I told him next year I will assist him. The Friday night I attended, as did Councillor Keel, I attended the kickoff Kiwanis Club Christmas extravaganza at West United Church, put on by Dorian Pierce and Kitsissippi Productions. We want to thank Mr. Butler for the MC and Des Patel, stage manager, and all the volunteers who performed and everybody involved. It was a great show. And every year I'd make a donation, my wife and I. It was the 5th year. If Dorian Pierce does the Chapeau two-step and the Chichester Shuffle. And he said, no, Brian, it's not a step dance, it's a tap dance. So we want to also thank the Kiwanis Club and the Rotary Club for their great work they're doing with their Christmas toy drive and fundraising. And there's various craft shows in the community, notably the Germania Club, Crystal Kindle Mart this weekend. And we hope to see everybody this Thursday, 11 till 2, at the Fire Hall for their chili cook-off event, which they proceeds donate to help everyone. And that's put on by our friends at the Pembroke Professional Firefighter Association. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Purcell and Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Mayor. Really important update in regards to the warming center operations. I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I just want to make sure that there's a good understanding in terms of the direction that's going forward in terms of the operations of the warming center for this year. As you're well aware, I did present at council that we were looking at the farmers market, and we actually had discussions with the farmers market representatives, and they were favorable to hosting the warming center there this past winter, or this coming winter. Things have changed as of yesterday. There was a meeting in terms of our warming center meeting, and there was some information exchange at that time where they actually have acquired a lease with the Ontario Addictions Treatment Centre at the OATC at 156 John Street in Pembroke, and that's for leasing approximately 2,500 square feet. The lease shall be up to 5 months, effective immediately. And the center shall provide a warming center program for up to 24 hours per day. The Mesa Warming Center addictions and mental health staffing will be adjusted based on operational demand and community needs, with total staffing hours shall not exceed 5,400 hours over the 5-month period. That being said, after so much discussion and just making sure that, you know, we have controls in place and, you know, in terms of those individuals that will be utilizing the center, the warming center, and those that are situated around it. The center shall implement and enforce a code of conduct for warming center occupants and identify a local 24/7 contact who is available to respond to matters involving the facility within 1 hour for any issue. And also that the center shall implement a good neighbor policy and demonstrate responsiveness in addressing neighborhood concerns associated with the center's operations. So this is some feedback that we've received, and we've incorporated into the motion. This was the motion that was passed yesterday. And what I'm told is that staff are working diligently right now to ready the space, and staff will be in place on Monday. And based on how the renovations go, they should be looking at a soft launch sometime next week. So that's really good news, and I think, you know, instead of having trailers, we have kind of like a bricks and mortar facility. And I guess this also paves the way in the event that we are successful in terms of getting a heart hub. So this will be a referral center to the heart hub location that will be located at Carrefour. So that being said, I do have a budget. So Mr. Keel would be very happy, Councillor Keel would be very happy. And so the budget that was presented yesterday, it's a high-level budget in terms of the lease cost are $33,000. The site readiness is $12,000. And I can make this available to everybody, this report, so you have it. Cleaning is $12,000, amenities is $25,000, and staffing costs are $158,000, for a total estimate of $240,000. So all our partners from last year have actually, are continuing to support the operations of the Warming Center, so that'll be the town of Petawawa and the town of Laurentian Valley, and of course our great friends at the county. I do want to say a huge thank you to the county and the county staff for really, you know, hearing some of the concerns that we had and addressing these issues and really looking for a longer term solution. The 5-month lease, it can be extended, and I think they're just waiting to see in terms of, you know, in terms of the success, in terms of some of the applications that are coming through. So again, that landscape is changing, and it's changing in a very progressive and fast manner, and I appreciate council's patience in regards to getting some of this information. Again, with all the things that are changing, it's very difficult to get that together, but I will make sure that I pass that around to everyone, and there's a little bit of description in terms of how it's going to operate. Again, the operations will be performed by McKay Manor, so they're treatment services or residential treatment services, and they have the services supports to provide you know, oversight for those particular clients that would be utilizing the Warming Center this year. And that's in conjunction with the other programs that I talked about in terms of the homeless prevention program, such as the hotel stays. Remember I talked about East and West in terms of having Rocky Mountain House, and so they're trying to work with individuals and trying to get them housed where they're typically located. And so the Warming Center still needs a purpose, because there's some of those individuals that unfortunately you can't support in terms of those types of housing currently, unless they receive some rehabilitation. So. The other thing that's really, really important is there's been lots of committee meetings. I attended Alpha, which was the 2024 Fall Symposium workshops for public health, and it was really interesting. It was over 3 days. And they talked a lot about AI and how AI is going to change in terms of some of the information or the opportunities to utilize data from various different sources to predict some health outcomes, either positive or negative. So it was really, really interesting in terms of seeing how that attended. I also completed the CAO Library Pay Equity Evaluation, so that is now complete. I attended the Remembrance Day ceremony at the Cenotaph and laid the wreath on behalf of recognition of family members that have served, and unfortunately those that have given their ultimate sacrifice. And then we had an accessibility advisory committee. Unfortunately, we just didn't have quorum, but we did have some really wholesome discussions in regards to some of the findings that we did from our tour from Riverside Park, Waterfront Park, and as well as City Hall. And that'll be coming to you shortly and be incorporated in our annual report. Health committee meeting I attended, and also the Renfrew County District Health Unit Governance Committee, which I chair. Something very, very important and coming out of public health is in regards to the 1% cap in terms of funding. So as you're well aware, typically the province funds us 75%, to the municipalities 25%. So currently this year we're at like a 27-73 split. That being said, we're looking at an increase, a potential increase. It's small, but it's still an increase in terms of 0.03% in terms of the levy fee, which is about $11,000, but it's still an increase. What they are requesting, and this is a request from the chair, is those individuals that are going to Roma, if they are willing to attend a delegation with the Minister of Health, Sylvia Jones, and the reason for that is because the funding hasn't changed for those unorganized territories. So you know the Crown lands that are located in terms of our Renfrew County, there's compensation for that, and that compensation hasn't changed in many, many years. So there's an opportunity to, you know, to gather some additional funding. And also the per capita funding, just wanted to compare the average for the province and what the, you know, staff time that impacts the budget. So that 1% increase was capped because of the amalgamation processes that were happening. Unfortunately, we didn't find a suitable, you know, partnering health unit that would partner. So we're capped at that 1%. So again, you know, the Renfrew County District Health Unit staff will actually provide a package in regards to the presentation material. And for those individuals that are going to Roma, if they just want to just give me a shout and I can hook you up in terms of getting that package to you and provide you some useful information in terms of the delegation with the Minister of Health. So I think that's it. So I know it's a lot of information, but I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Councillor Jacquino?
Thank you, Your Worship. As the council representative on the Renfrew County Housing Corporation Authority and Social Services, I have a 49-page report. Would you like me to read it to you, Your Worship? Yes. Okay. The meeting was held on November 13, 2000. I certainly will not read it, but it's here and I'll have it available for you. To the front door, these are not expected to impact the overall timeline for opening. We remain on track to complete major construction on schedule, allowing community services to begin their portion of space fit up in early November. Staff are currently reviewing options for grand opening with invitations planned for attendance by the appropriate ministries. Again, as the warden mentioned, these are dollars that are invested back into the community. Not only dollars, but the physical and mental health of, you know, people that are that live in our community and require it. There was a question raised as to who would have the ability for occupancy, and dealing with as this is a transitional model, partners such as the Mesa team, etc., they'll develop a criteria for occupancy. The other item that I wanted to mention to you, the County of Renfrew and their constant additional units there on that same property. So again, they're giving people the opportunity to have proper housing. Again, these dollars go back into the community. Local contractors are involved, etc. So, you know, if people say we're paying a lot in through our taxes, etc., those dollars seem to come back and filter through by providing jobs to individuals. Thank you, Your Worship. I'll have the report available for council.
Thank you. Councillor Keel?
Thank you, Your Worship. On November 15th, I had the opportunity to attend the Holiday Sip and Shop at the Best Western. This was one of our craft markets. 'Tis the season, I guess, is the best way to put that. So this particular market, there were drinks and there was shopping, and it was so well attended by Kitchissippi Productions to bring greetings on behalf of the city at the Kiwanis Christmas extravaganza. This was their first year of live performances after several years of it being a video telethon. It was an absolutely amazing night, and certainly I thank all of the performers and all of the people donating money. Everything raised is going to the Kiwanis Toy and Food Drive fundraiser. I also want to highlight an announcement that we have a brand new Parks and Rec event, the Deck the Halls Community Showdown. I'm really happy to see this get off the ground, not just because it It's going to provide some competition between us and our neighbors in Laurentian Valley. But I think, I really hope that it spurs a lot of people decorating and a lot of lights going up. You know, when I was talking to Claudia, you know, trying to encourage her to run an event that would get people decorating. You know, upcoming Festival Hall update on November 22nd, Dan Hill and Andy Kim, Stories and Songs. So these are two exceedingly well-known individuals who have been involved for many years, often on the songwriting side. So they will be coming here to Festival Hall. On November 23rd, Grace 2, celebrating the music of the Tragically Hip, will be at Festival Hall. And then on November 30th, as if there wasn't enough going on that week and that day, the AC/DC show will also be at Festival Hall. So my suggestion, if you want to hit our Santa Claus parade, which I know everybody does, maybe you want to start down at the Metro end so that you can rush to Festival Hall and make sure that you make the show. In terms of a broader Festival Hall update, Your Worship, I can advise this council that at this point in time we have.
Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Frenier. Those in favor, that is carried. Councillor Frenier?
Yeah, just a little update on something that's happening recently. You all are familiar with the Mesa team and the work they've been doing in our community. There's a new partnership, and that is between the Mesa team and Renfrew County Housing. The Mesa team has been performing wellness checks and providing healthcare information at our social housing addresses through the city. And what they're doing is they're connecting with vulnerable population, some maybe with mental health, some with addictions, some just not being attached to the community in a way that they need to be to stay well. So the Mesa team is providing them with all the information they need about the agencies that are in our community that they may not know about. So even when they're not on the street or checking for tents in our community now, they're doing outreach to reach those vulnerable people. And the main purpose is to keep them from the emergency rooms, because we all know the hospital is already overloaded. So it's preventing visits to the emergency room. It's hopefully sending them in the right direction to well. And they are planning, and I'm sure it'll go through County Council, but one of the presentations that they're planning for this next Roma, and if I can do this, because I can't see it from there, one of the recommendations was that, was to the Ministry of Health, Minister of Health, and Deputy Premier Sylvia Jones, and Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Michael Tibolo. The purpose of the delegation is to discuss the MESA project and the requirement for funding support for community paramedics and mental health and addiction counselors to support our vulnerable populations. Also, the meeting would be to discuss the need to learn and stay grant eligibility for primary care and advanced care paramedics to be expanded into Eastern Ontario. So as you can see, they're always advocating for more funding. And so earlier tonight, we did a lot of talk about resolutions and appealing to the upper levels of government. They speak on behalf of the city of Pembroke, and they are very influential when it comes to talking to the ministers. So I just wanted you to know that they are working on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Frenier, I believe you have a motion to move into a closed session.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Troy Purcell, that this meeting become a closed meeting to discuss advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, as per Section 239(2)(f) of the Municipal Act regarding 273 Victoria Street, and a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of lands by the municipality, as per Section 239(2)(c) of the Municipal Act, regarding former CN Lands B Trail.
Moved by Councillor Frenier, seconded by Councillor Purcell, that the meeting become a closed meeting to discuss advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose as per section 239(2)F of the Municipal Act regarding 273 Victoria Street, and secondly, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of lands by a municipality as per section 239 sub 2 sub C of the Municipal Act regarding former CN lands /B trail. Those in favor? That is carried. We will now move into a closed session.